And the short answer is that I'm opposed to any change in the bylaw. Obviously, I can make that argument at town meeting as well, although perhaps somebody else will do it for me. My issue with changing the bylaw, not having to do with me personally, but my issue generally is that when people first approached me and said, we want to change the bylaw about how many people are in, how many times folks can come to the microphone, the presentation was that there had been less people at town meeting, that it was causing town meeting to lose attendance. And so we went and did some research. We pulled all of the attendance sheets for the general, special town meetings for the last, probably since 2001, maybe it was 2001. And in fact, town meeting attendance has steadily been on the rise. So that's good news. And the other thing is that, not surprisingly, when there was a general or a special town meeting over something that the community cared about, the new school, for example, the police and fire, more people would turn out for their article. So there's no sort of suggestion about how many people would leave after their article was decided, but people were, attendance was not the issue. But the selectmen still pressed on wanting to change the bylaw because their opinion was that they had been approached by people, unnamed people, who were not happy with it. And they felt that they should have more chances at the microphone. And the second bite at the why we should change the bylaw apple, there have been a couple of reasons. One of them has been that it enables the community to more fully vet an article than the current restrictive bylaw does. And I don't agree with that. But my primary issue with it is this. Notwithstanding what I said when I ran for moderator, which is that I would try to ensure that the bylaw and what it represented stayed in place so that more people would come to town meeting because they wouldn't view it as sort of a 5-night Leviathan to climb. The issue is that with 2 times at the microphone, the first time for 5 minutes and the second time for 3 minutes, that's ample time if you have paid attention at all to what's going on, read the articles, to vet an issue as long as you're listening to what everybody else says. As you know, we suggest that people bundle their questions. If they have more than one question, you can ask a series of questions, and the time for people to answer those questions is unlimited. In addition, they have the folks who are positing an article have the amount of time that they establish at the moderator's organizational meeting as well. So folks have 8 minutes now on each motion, and that can be 16 minutes or even 32 minutes within an article, because there's motions to amend, there's motions to amend the amended article, there's motions for reconsideration, all of which entitle that person to an additional 5, and subsequent to that, an additional 3 minutes. My issue is that when I was here before the Board of Selectmen, and I told the Board of Selectmen I was opposed to changing the bylaw, I explained that one of my issues with it is that they were saying, well, if you want to cut people off, you can. You're the moderator. You can do whatever you want. And that's absolutely true. I understand that within the confines of town meetings, so long as it's not illegal, I can say, I don't care about the bylaw. Everybody gets 1 minute at the mic, and that's it. Or it's unlimited, and that's it. I can go outside the bylaw, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. What the bylaw does is it, I think, creates for the whole town, and it's an ease of use for myself as well, a sense of fairness. So that if there's because they were saying, the selectmen were saying, well, you can just cut people off. If there's an issue that adversely impacts people on Cleveland Street, and which is the street that I live on, and I allow someone on Cleveland Street to speak to the mic 7 times, but somebody who is in favor of the article I cut off at 6 times for a legitimate purpose, that person is going to be convinced, and I understand why, that I have done it simply because I am biased against them. And the bylaw, the way it stands now, I think protects the moderator, so it's a self-involved argument, but it protects the town meeting as well, because everybody knows that they have a limited amount of times at the microphone. If there's a question, the current bylaw states. If somebody stated something that's wrong, or if there's a reason to go beyond the 5 minutes and the 3 minutes, I have the discretion, or whoever the moderator is has the discretion to do so. But I don't think that we are benefited from creating a bylaw that essentially, and I know they've kind of tried to restructure it, it still says the same thing. It is essentially unlimited, except at my discretion. So now people will expect that they can come up to the microphone as many times as they want. If they didn't like what their neighbor Steve had to say, back up to the microphone they go, and it becomes my job as the meeting progresses to stop them, rather than to say at the very beginning, which we have done, I think, successfully, here's the bylaw, 5 minutes first time, 3 minutes second time, with limited exceptions as we go. So because I think that the town and a busy population are benefited from a town meeting that's long enough to vet an issue but short enough for people to be able to attend it, and I am not impressed or convinced by arguments that my neighbors don't like it, it's decreased town meeting attendance, it's not how we do things. That was one that I heard, and I heard it from somebody who usually really enjoys people doing things new, but whatever. I'm not impressed by any of those arguments. I think that the bylaw should stay the way it is.
Ready? Responses?
How long has the bylaw been in place, do you know?
I want to say since '06. It could have been '07 though.
I think in the discussion.
Dan Winslow is the one who changed it. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, I was interrupting.
So whenever he got elected.
Yeah. So, kind of interesting because I was just reading what we were deleting with the article. I think one of the arguments that's been made that it'd be nice to expand it is people have used up their 2 times of speaking, and then someone comes up and makes a point that's, let's say, it's believed to be factually incorrect, and they can't go and refute that. But the current bylaw says you can do that.
Exactly.
So
that's exactly it. You
that
can
was
stand up and say
someone's
point of order.
comment at our last meeting.
You mean even if it's the
Yeah,
fourth-
they've
if
spoken
it's the
twice.
third-
They've
but-
spoken twice, and they believe something to be factually incorrect. They can come up and say,
Right, it
Madam
says right here.
Moderator, point of order, that information is factually incorrect.
Right.
And
correct a
and they
mistake
can,
or a misstatement.
that's correct.
So,
So I don't
Which
think,
would-
I think that's enough. I think this is
yeah.
an attempt to placate, and I think it's just going to devolve into wordsmithing, and someone's like, well, maybe we'll do 3 times at the mic. Well, is 3 enough to vet an issue? I don't know. If this goes, obviously it's going. Perhaps my argument is just to stand up at the, turn it over to Jay as my special moderator and go up to the mic and stand there for 8 minutes so everybody knows exactly, and not say anything, so everyone can get a real sense of how much time they already have. And if they care enough to come to town meeting, presumably they at least have some sense of what's going on.
I mean, I don't think anybody is really quibbling with the 5 minutes or the 3 minutes. It's clearly the number of times at the
Exactly.
mic that's the issue.
Right.
The one situation I've seen several times that I think would benefit from more discussions is we have situations like planning board articles. And maybe we'll have somebody who's very knowledgeable about one side, like a Jay Tallerman, let's say. And we'll have a member of the planning board. And they sort of have a mini debate sometimes. And I think there are times when that kind of discussion, that kind of back and forth, more than just twice, would be beneficial on those technical kinds of articles. Now, is that worth throwing all articles out to, unlimited times at the mic? I don't really think so, but I do wish there was some kind of resolution that would enable that kind of discussion. when you've
Well, I
got
think
two
in that
people that know what
instance,
they're talking about.
candidly, I think in that instance, everybody has a right to attend. Not that anybody ever does, even though for a long time I was providing donuts and coffee. The organizational, right? Free donuts. Organizational meeting. And to say, hey, I think a particular article is needs more than 2 minutes by the proponent or the opponent. And I always say that if there is a proponent, do we know of an opponent? And who would be the person to best approach to oppose the article? And they are given as much time as the proponent. And I think as part of that same dialogue, I have the absolute authority to say, this seems like a hot ticket item. I'm going to keep my knees flexible. If it seems like we're getting more information, and I'll let people know at the beginning of town meeting, hey, Articles 7 and 13, we may be allowing more time to talk because they seem to be hotly contested or they seem to be confusing. Or like last time at the fall town meeting where there was really a bundle that perhaps should have been, or there was a group of articles that perhaps should have been bundled differently to make more sense to town meeting and weren't, they would have perhaps benefited from more of a attendance at the organizational meeting. So I think that the current bylaw allows for people, including myself, and perhaps, it allows for people to educate me or whomever the moderator is. Me sounds so narcissistic, even though it is me. It allows folks to educate the moderator on what the hot button items are, what's going to need more vetting, what is an article that has opponents and proponents, and how much time should both sides get to make their case at the outset before you even get to the 5 minutes and the 2 minutes.
I mean, I would feel better about the concern I just raised if I had more of a sense that you were, in fact, ready, willing, and able to exercise that discretion.
I'm absolutely able to.
On the topic.
I mean, I'm as on the record as you're going to get. Yeah, I absolutely think that and I think sometimes, it's incumbent upon me to keep my knees flexed because we'll use last spring's annual town meeting as an example. I'm sure you'll all recall the budget of $32 million went through in like 47.3 seconds, and whether or not to table the hunting article took an hour. So nobody thought tabling, the article was going to be anything other than pro forma, and an hour later we're still talking about it. So I think that even if we all sit down or whomever attends sits down at the organizational meeting and says, hey, we think Article 7 is going to be where we're going to get the most discourse, and Article 7 flies through, and Article 8 people start digging in the heels, I think that it's okay because I have the right to do that now, pursuant to state law, to say, hey, it seems like people are getting confused. We're not going to shut off the dialogue if people are getting confused. But I also, in that point, I think would have the right to say, if the same person is up to the mic saying the same thing 6 times. That's what the current bylaw is preventing, is that wars are won and lost on who's the most vocal participant.
Or who's the last one to speak.
Or who's the last
That's
one to
the
speak.
That kills me is you get that sense so often that it all comes down to I want to be the last one to speak.
Right. You think people are waiting. Well, that's what makes me crazy, too, is I'll say, just line up at the mics, and then as soon as it's just about to calm, the person pops up from the back. So I don't know how much there's only so much you can do, but I agree.
So in the case where you have people with perhaps some deep knowledge who either have back and forth, or one person with deep knowledge maybe wants to correct or factually clarify a lot of questions, and they get time limited, what motion could somebody make to ask you to, I don't know whether to suspend the rules, so what I'm asking for
I think
is
you just say a point of order. You would just
a
ask.
point of order, and then you'd say what? Madam
what he
Moderator,
said-
would you consider extending?
Exactly. Or
Okay.
somebody said something that's factually incorrect. One of the things that I will say is that I will happily say, no, I won't consider it if I think that it's turning into a debate or it's two people who both think that they're the most learned in the room and they want to opine on their side of the subject. I mean, the
Understood.
whole point of the existence of the bylaw is to limit people. Not to limit the justice or the American way or democracy, but to keep people to the point and surely you can make your point related to an article or learn about an article in your 8 minutes, because the folks who are educating and for and against an article come to the organizational meeting if they care and ask for time and say, I need 20 minutes because I have PowerPoint and I have 20 slides and history shows that each slide is a minute and I need that. And then you get the back and forth, because you definitely get people they'll start with, you said that 3 years ago, and I want to prevent devolution as well. And so while I'm telling you that it is my right that I have exercised and would continue to exercise to say if I think something needs more time, I'm also telling you if I don't think that somebody is correct, that something's not factual, or if I do think that it's boiling down to a pissing contest, that I'm not going to let it keep going, even if it is a hotly contested article.
All right, no.
Other
Other question?
Comments,
Thank
questions,
you.
anything? No?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Cynthia.
I'll turn the mic over to somebody else.
All righty. Well, our two chiefs, which one of you would like to go first? Chief Stone? Oh, before I call you up, I once again forgot a procedural thing. We have to introduce ourselves.
Arthur Franzak.
Mark Waldman.
Pat Sneed.
Dave Benton.
Arlie Sterling.
I came here tonight determined I wouldn't forget, but I forgot anyway. And that was CC, our town moderator, because I forgot to ask you to introduce yourself too, I think, didn't I?
Yeah, you did, and I forgot to introduce myself. I just
So,
dove right in.
okay. But now we're all caught up. So whichever of you would like to go first, together, however you would like to take it, join us at the table.
Next fire chief won't do. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening. And for anybody out there who may happen not to know you, if you would please introduce yourself.
I'm Cole Bushnell, your fire chief here in Norfolk. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. I want to thank my very good colleague and friend, Chief Stone, for allowing me to come up here first so that I can hurry home and watch the Yankees lose. Not a lot in terms of substance to the presentation this evening. I think one of the things to bring up immediately is last year during our discussions with the board, Mr. Chairman, you brought up the question regarding when the fire department would be pursuing additional career staffing. And at that time I told you that we were working on a plan that we were very excited about, a great deal of enthusiasm for utilizing the existing staff in recalls. And we brought that program to fruition in February. The pilot program ran February, March. It was a collaborative between union and labor. What transpired is the Board of Selectmen asked the union to utilize a 2-hour recall as opposed to a 3-hour recall, specifically for situations when the ambulance was transporting. And the goal that we were trying to pursue was to get to our minimum staffing of 24/7. The problem that we've had in the past for many years is each time the ambulance transports, it leaves one person in the station. Subsequent calls come in, and our ability to respond in a timely manner is impacted by the ability of bringing people in. As time has progressed in Norfolk, the number of people who work here and live here has decreased dramatically. And our overall staff has decreased dramatically. Right now, we're at a total of 18. We have never, in the history of the department, been below 20. We're operating with that number right now fairly comfortably. During the 2 months of the pilot project, we responded to 54 transports of patients, and we were able to cover the station every time during that 54 number period. We did have a 55th situation just a couple weeks ago where we didn't get a recall, and as we move forward, I mean, obviously one of the things that we're concerned about will be as the weather breaks with the availability of people that we have close by. The way the program was set up was to utilize people coming back within a 15-minute period. We did that to take into account those who reside in the contiguous communities or slightly farther so that we'd be able to utilize their services. The number of times that we've transported additional people or responded to other emergencies is about 20% of the time. We did have a pediatric patient that required immediate assistance. We responded to that call within 4 minutes as opposed to the usual 10-plus minutes to get recall staff in. So what you see in the budget there is a reflection in supplemental staffing. It's at the bottom of the personnel page. The Board of Selectmen approved us for $12,000 for the pilot. And next year we're looking at about $70,000 to run that particular project. I've called it the most exciting project that Norfolk has brought forward other than the ALS effort that we had. This is truly a means where we're going to be able to provide the best possible service at the best dollar amount that we can. When we put this project forward, there were people who came to us and suggested that we pursue the issue of attempting to hire additional career staff. And our response was simply that the sustainability of trying to put that forward just wasn't there. We'd be looking at the area of somewhere around 250,000 to move that forward. At a fraction of the cost, we're achieving the same. And even by hiring 4 additional career staff, again, each time the ambulance transports, there's only 2 people in the station. We base our operations that we need 3, and then we only need 1 person coming in, whether it be myself or the deputy fire chief. We're ready to go to work. And as I've explained in the past to the board, for a fire situation that we need at least 4 people present before we begin any fire suppression activity. So as I said, the project was an undeniable success. We're going to give a presentation to the Board of Selectmen in the coming weeks to provide them with all the information on that. So that's one of the increases that you do see in the budget that the Selectmen endorsed the other night. One of the other things that we're looking to try to accomplish is renewing the personal protective equipment, our turnout gear, the turnout coats and the bunker pants. In the past, we've utilized the Fire Act grants from the federal government as a stopgap measure, and that's worked to an extent, but we need to have a cyclical means of replacing the gear. The gear is generally good for our usage for about 4 years. Our plan that we put forth in the budget this year is we want to be able to replace 3 sets of gear every year. And what that would do for the career staff is, with the 12 career people that we have, is every 4th year we'd end the cycle, we'd be in a situation to ensure that we had protective gear that was designed and be utilized in the means of protecting the firefighters. We'd also try to integrate that, obviously, to take care of the call staff as well, and their gear generally will last a lot longer just from the amount of times it's used as opposed to career staff. So that adjustment was put in there, again endorsed by the Board of Selectmen. The last item that's in there that appears new is the lease for the hydraulic electric stretcher. Town was very gracious to provide us the funding to bring that piece of equipment to our community. As you know, we do have 2 firefighters that retired on disability because of back injuries. The electric hydraulic stretcher is such that when we bring a patient to the stretcher, it's handled electronically with the hydraulic system on the stretcher, so we never have to lift again. We have a stair chair, which we purchased back in 2004, system which eliminates further lifting. So our goal with our ambulances and with the firefighter paramedics is to avoid lifting patients as much as we possibly can. And I think we're going to achieve that goal with that 1 stretcher. As we move forward, our plan will be on any of the ambulances that we're either refurbing on remounts or purchasing new, that will buy the other part of the system that will actually move the stretcher from the ground surface into the truck without any assistance, and that's where we'll hopefully end up with that. Otherwise, the budget is pretty straightforward. Contains the listing, as we do each year, of all the staff, what their rates are. We have continued the sick coverage. One of the things that you might be interested in is how we're handling sick coverage now, again, as a union management collaborative, is the sick coverage, even though it's part of our budget, the union has agreed to allow us to staff the day shifts anytime someone books off for the 24 with call firefighter staff, and then we staff the night shift with the career. And that helps us to elongate the means of using the money that's in there in terms of our overall coverage. Some of the things that we've done also last year is we made a full commitment that we will replace all of our staff 1 for 1 when they're not available. We've been able to do that because we continue triaging calls for service. When the 911 calls are received at the station, our shift officers, along with the communications technicians, screen them very closely to determine if we can go strictly with the shift, which isn't going to cost us anything in terms of overtime, bringing people back. And we're still well above the 80% on that. The 80% of the calls that come into the station are handled by our shift staff, so that's been a big bone for us. The other thing that we are doing is if the deputy chief and I aren't available, the shift officer will remain in town. We'll do a recall, bring additional staff in. And we've also initiated a program where if an ambulance transports to Boston, Rhode Island, or to Worcester, we're also recalling to put people in here because the amount of time that will be involved to retrieve the ambulance from the city. We had an incident just several weeks ago where the truck went to Boston. They were gone for about three and a half hours before we got them back. So that's been paying off. We've been able to manage the budget with what we had in there for our recalls. We're doing well, and again, it comes down to the union working cooperatively with us and with the staff, making sure that when we do recall people, we're doing it for a reason. One of the reasons that we've been successful, I think, with our ambulance recall is our overall recalls for fires, for serious accidents or other incidents have decreased because we're doing more of the staff. And the coverage plan that we're using when the ambulance goes out has really taken that place and has created some interest there. So we're going to monitor it going along. We're very grateful for the board's support, Board of Selectmen support. We move that project forward, and obviously very appreciative of the work of the union. That's a thumbnail sketch of where we are as we move into the year 2014.
I just have one quick question and then open it to others. When we last saw the budget, there was a fair discrepancy between what you were looking for and what Jack had put down as his suggestion. I gather since that time, discussions have taken place, and there's a budget that now that you all have now pretty well agreed upon.
I think you lost me in the translation there.
Okay, I mean, we saw a budget that was unbalanced at the time we saw it, and there was.
That was due to the we lost the radio system. One of the things I'm sorry I did not mention that there's in expenses supplies there's an additional actually it was $35,000 that was put in there during the month of October. The perfect storm occurred, and we lost our primary and backup repeater sites. We were without any ability to communicate in the community for almost a week. We utilized Norfolk County Control, gave us a channel which would allow us operationally to continue, but we lost all our ability to notify firefighters of what was taking place. We had two radio firms come in, review the situation. They concurred that we needed to basically rebuild our infrastructure, which was a significant amount, replacing both repeater sites. We contracted with the same firm which handles the police department radio system. We put the system back up, and we're in the process now. We also put money in there to have a peer review of the system, which will be done probably the next 3 or 4 weeks. So that might be the discrepancy that's in there, but I don't recall anything else in that. The relationship and with the discussions and negotiations with the town administrator, with the board over the last 9 years. I don't think we've really haggled over really any of the points in here. I think the most discussion we had was really with the staffing plan that was put into place. There was a lot of vetting that went on with that.
I didn't mean to suggest that there was haggling. I was just what we saw was incomplete, I guess,
Okay.
is a better way to put it. And I gather from your discussion that at this point there is a budget that is satisfactory.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the level of support that we receive from Jack's office, from the board, and from all the boards in town. It's 9 years I've served you is. Has been exemplary. I don't think we've really contested really anything, and I think that's a credit to the nature of the community to be able to digest information that we put out there. I mean, we try to spend a great deal of time educating people, bringing people in, taking people out for coffee, having them come in and kick the tires, and I think we bear the fruit of that effort. Just each year as our budget goes through, we appreciate it. Other than the fact that your Red Sox are just going to finish ahead of the Yankees this year without any problems whatsoever.
7th versus 8th. Other questions? Welcome, Lisa.
Yes.
Is there a budget? I mean, are there some numbers?
There's a budget from last week. I don't know.
Yeah, we were going to. It was just going to be a general. When we said it wasn't going to be
Right.
looking through each line. Yeah.
But we have, I mean, we did get right, you were missing, we did get a budget. It's not.
detailed, though. just
It's still,
the summary budget.
yeah, and it's also not a balanced budget, at least the last one we saw. So they were still working on it.
Okay.
I'd be happy to email copies of ours out to the board if you'd like.
Oh,
Okay.
we'll see the details soon enough. Thank you. I don't think we need, unless others would like to, but I think we'll get the details from the selectmen when they're ready with the entire budget. Well, nobody else, I have one other question, if nobody else has anything. The electric, the hydraulic stretcher lift, we have 2 ambulances, but 1 stretcher, so,
I guess you could say the fire chief was fiscally short-sighted. We probably, in hindsight being 50-50, we probably could have gone out and at least purchased 2. But at the end of the day, I felt that we were better fit by going for the 1, the ambulance, which does approximately 85 to 90% of the runs. We are looking to either replace or remount the body on Rescue 1 within the next couple of years, and we felt at the end was that we'd best serve the town by taking care of the immediate need, and then as we move forward, incorporate that into the purchase of the other truck. And obviously, as I said, hindsight being 50-50, it would have been nice to do them both up front, but I think at this stage we're probably better served being fiscally conservative in that area.
I just, your comment that you'll never have to lift a stretcher again, I was couldn't quite figure out how, but, so you probably will have to lift a stretcher.
Well, on the
once
other
or
truck,
twice again.
exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
we'll have to lift it on the other truck all the time.
Okay.
Is there a capital component of the budget?
No. We got our capital taken away from us, and at this point, there is nothing for capital. Not that we know of, anyway.
And how's everything working in that regard, Chief?
In terms of,
Some of your equipment is getting a little long in the tooth, I think.
it may be, but to credit to the Department of Public Works, it's in really great shape. We were fortunate enough to buy the 2 engines prior to the crash. Our ladder truck, which is 1998, we've been pecking away at that. I think at one point we had looked at about a $200,000 refurb on that. We have that number reduced substantially now. Paul at DPW, as I said, has been working diligently on that. We're going to have some work done in the next couple of weeks where a lot of the rust to the chassis and the turntable, which houses the mechanism for the actual aerial device, have that sanded, primed, and repainted, which is something that's been talked about in our last 4 or 5 annual inspections of the truck. Both of the engines are doing very well. Tank 1, we replaced the pump in that 3 years ago. So the fleet is in very good shape. I think the only thing that we've had some discussion on, as a matter of fact, as late as today, Squad 4, our backup brush truck, is housed in the unheated former DPW garage here on Main Street, and we're starting to initiate some conversation and maybe getting some heat in there. The truck has been in there now for almost 4 years, and it is starting to degrade, and DPW, as we speak, is doing work on it now. So we are looking to do something with that, houses other equipment down there. But overall, we're doing well. I think within the next year, we're probably going to be coming forward with a proposal to replace hose. The hose that we purchased extra with the 2 engines has been used and abused, and it's probably going to be time to look to replace some hose. The component for our protective clothing is good. Our portable power equipment, such as the saws, generators, and things of that nature, have been very well maintained. The only larger expenditure down the road for us right now, at least during my tenure, will be replacing our SCBA bottles. They have a 15-year life. At the end of 15 years, they have to be removed from service because of the composite nature of the cylinders. So we'll be looking to replace those, and probably what we'll be doing is, to steal your phraseology, Arlie, since we all in the department are getting somewhat long in the tooth, we're probably going to go with a smaller bottle, which will require us to change some of our mounting brackets as well. Right now, the cylinders we have are 45 minutes in duration. We're going to downgrade that to 30 minutes, which will probably take about 10 pounds off of each firefighter, which I welcome entirely myself. So. But overall, things are very good. We have some minor replacements. We have a saw that we're looking to replace, and we have two portable tanks. They're actually pools that are on the tank truck that we would use going into areas without water. We had to dump water and offload. Those are both beyond repair. So we have looked into perhaps some donations from the public on that, but those are probably the only last two pressing items that we have. We replaced our thermal imaging cameras this past year, and we replaced the gas, one of our combustible gas detectors. So, as I said, overall, we're in very good shape down there. Thank you.
And the building?
What can be said about the building? The trailer is doing very well, yes. I mean, the building is what it is. I would love to say that prior to my tenure here that we'll be in a nice brand new station that actually functions and it means that it's set up. And Chuck and I will debate this all day long. And I just don't see an appetite, unfortunately, in the public with the tax situation being what it is. I think it's going to be the nexus of the next administration that comes in to carry that forward. I think we brought it as far as we could, 15 votes short, handled everything we could on the rubber chicken circuit, meeting with people in their homes, meeting with groups of 15 or 20. I think we did everything we possibly could do the last time out. And we're building a school. We have a beautiful new school, but in retrospect, had we built our building, I think my discussion here tonight would be I'm looking to save two guys instead of laying them off, and I think at the end of the day, it probably things worked out for the best. I hate to say it. Perhaps it's a defeatist attitude, but I think it's realistic. We maintain our 12 staff. We operate the best we can. Everyone's well aware of the situation down there. I mean, we can look forward to moving into the regional dispatch center, which will create some room for us. But we still have the problem with flows. I mean, the building continues to deteriorate. I can't justify to myself that we're going to spend $25,000 to put a new roof on it. I just like to see an accidental fire, maybe take it out. I'm on record, but that's okay. It doesn't bother me. It's Chuck put it out on record. We have to say that Chuck was over with the fire, but it is what it is. The building long since past its usefulness. We're truly like the Marines. We adapt and overcome on a daily basis down there, and that's all we can do. We're fortunate the staff, and I think Chuck would say the same thing about his people, that the staff that we have come to work maintain a very upbeat attitude and realize that first of all they need a job, and second of all we'll work in the confines that we have, and we'll do the very best that we possibly can. And hopefully at some point I'd like to come back here retired and walk into the grand opening of the new building. That would be great. I'd like to say it'd be done while I'm here, but I'm realistic.
I think that should do it. Thank you very much. Appreciate the update, and as always, very much appreciate everything you do for us, our town. We really have a lot to be grateful for, to have someone like you, someone like Chief Stone in the positions you're in. So thank you.
It's all the men and women do the job for us. Thanks.
Thank you.
And thanks to them as well.
See if I can fit in here with all this stuff on.
Good evening and welcome.
Yeah, Chuck Stone, your police chief. How's that?
Thank you.
What I made up you get an early preview of this year's town report, so it gives you the stats and some of the activities that occurred during the year. And the other one is my modified budget from the earlier one that I submitted. just took a stab at it. The board has not voted on it yet, but on the new one, but they did tell me the number that I had to hit, so I did hit that. One of the things I wanted to say, while we were on that discussion about the station, I think in my narrative, was that what you were alluding to? Did you read the narrative that I actually wrote on that?
I have not had the chance to know. It was,
Oh, good.
so please share.
Can I continue with that part of it before we?
The floor is yours, the chair is yours, whatever.
Obviously, you're aware that you gave us like $2,500 to replace the garage doors on the building that's out back, the detached garage. And that has been done, and it has made a difference in the heating costs. We also replaced the side door. There was that much of a gap between the bottom of the door and the cement. So there was always air coming through. Now that's been repaired. They took an old door from the library and made it so that it fit and took care of some of the leaks. So right away we have a better situation going down there for heat in that back garage. And that is where the officers and the firefighters do their workout. They have a few machines out back, and they do tend to work out there. We all have to. You know, I don't care if I'm over 60, I got to do something. You know, also if I'm going to be involved. So everybody does something out back. Some of the things that I had brought up in that sheet, and I'm sure you have it, or you will have it, we do still need lockers. Out, you know, for new lockers, because those are, I've been here in the police department 37 years, and those things were there 10 years before that, at least. So they are falling apart, and I tell you that. But the officers store their equipment in there, their weapon, and the things are horrible. But we've got hasp on there, top and bottom, so that no people can't break in, and padlocks, and just that they're just the time for repair. But that would come with a whole new building. You'd get another locker set up. But some of the things I suggested that, you know, we could start going towards, because I'm not the doom and gloom about whether or not we can actually build a building. I would like to think that before I retire in 4.5 years, that we can get this building done. But during that time, maybe we could stopgap, do a little bit of minor projects that are going to have to be done later on. I said, why not remove all the trees from the lot to the right, have all that earth removed, flatten it out. We had originally proposed, and it was designed to have a heated detached garage up in the far back right corner on that plan. That would be a lesser expense. Maybe we could do that, and that way some of my vehicles can get inside. Conversion to, well, right now they're talking about natural gas runs in front of the station and up through the center here. We were talking about natural gas conversion. On the short term, I would pick up space because we have two 330-gallon oil tanks in our Sally Port, which were never supposed to be there. And when you open the door, you have to kind of sneak out of your car because they take up quite a bit of space. So we would reclaim, I guess, some of that space. And the natural gas is, you know, a little bit easier. You're not wasting any space within the building for the burners. Apparently, some people say they get better use out of the natural gas than oil. But anyways, we thought that would be a possibility for if we don't get anywhere. The pavement around the building is horrible. It's potholes. People, certainly when the firefighters come in, there's chances for them to step in the pothole and sprain an ankle, do things like that. People have fallen. Fortunately, we're still a little bit coordinated, so we don't always get hurt. You know, but skin knuckles and knees. But the bottom line is we need more space in the building. So if we're going to go on that bandbox that we get up and talk about it, we are going to need more space and newer building. The roof, part of that roof is still already needs to be replaced. It'll have to have the flat part. It's going to have to be replaced. As you know, maybe about 15 years ago, we did replace the pitched roof of the newer section, but that's about it for the building. So, all right, we can get back to the other part if you want. Sales pitch for that. Okay. The budget that I show you shows, you know, the increase. Jack had given me a number. I gave him a number, and then he gave me a number back, and so he said, hit that number, and to the advisory board. What I would like to see over the course of time is that we talk about getting the 18th position back. Now, that 18th position, as you remember, was voted in the 2009 annual town meeting. And by 2010, when we got around to that, the fiscal crisis had hit, and we had to lay off an officer who was here and one we were just about to hire. So we were not able to go out and tender him an offer of employment. So I would like that this year we get him back. We are right now having some issues with crime going on in town, but so is everybody else. One of the things that you might have heard in the fall, there was the home invasion on Cleveland Street. By luck, we had an officer who went from a detail right up here on Castle Road, went right over to there. It was quick enough to get there before they had left. 5 minutes is a max that anyone spends in a house when they're doing a B&E. Fortunately, the girl called and notified us that because she was down in the basement, she hid down there and made a call at her cell. Or actually, she had the portable phone. And one of my officers, who we recognized for doing a good job, and believe it or not, my dispatcher has just won the 911 award for that call, for how we handle that call. So good news comes, from bad things that happen, but good news. You have good people working for you. This guy made a jump call on Castle Road, went to that house, and as a result, we had 2 under arrest right there on the scene as they were coming out the door with 7 pillowcases full of good stuff. The drug problem is around. It's not people necessarily from our community. They're coming in from the Cape, coming in from New Bedford. They're coming in from west of here. And they're hitting every single town around. So we're all working at it, and we're all sharing information. What I always tell people is 3 parts to reducing crime in your town. Visibility of the officers is one of the biggest ones. Have them out there. I have them out on details. They all have portables. They all have cells. They're calling in information all day long. Can you run this plate? Can you do this? Can you do that? Check this car out as it's going by. They're calling the officers who are in the cruisers, not the detail officers, but they're calling the officers. We're finding out good stuff, and they're pulling them over, and they may already have stuff in the back of the car. They might have warrants for them. We find out who they are, and we recognize, and then we deal with them later. It's one way. So that's having them visible, performing traffic functions. Well, you put people out to do radar or at an intersection. It's another way to find out that things are going on in your community. These people that are driving through do not drive the best of cars, the ones that are committing the crimes. They got something wrong with the car. I don't care what happens. The car is defective equipment. It's got ball tires, inspection sticker issue. It's not registered. It's not insured. They don't have a license. They're revoked or suspended. And as a result, we're finding them. Well, what happens is word gets out. If you go through Norfolk, you're going to get pulled over if you got any of these issues going on, and you're probably going to get arrested if that is warranted. And they stop coming to our town, which is not a bad thing, because it was 2 weeks ago up on Grove Street. They had a house broken into during the day, and a girl was there. She had lived there. You probably heard about it. Yes. And the guy broke right in, walked right by her, and ran out the door. These are things that shouldn't be happening. But because of the drugs, they have to support that habit. And while they're supporting that habit, they can't do it on the $8 that they would make at McDonald's or the $15 they might if they were doing construction. So I'm talking about an hour. So if we're talking about that much money, they have to do like 5 B&Es a minimum per day. And then they take your jewelry, your electronics, and they trade it in down at a pawn shop or someplace else. Now, it's one of the things that they're even doing it so far as they take a Bernzomatic torch, melt all of your gold that you might have in your house. I don't have any in mine, so I don't worry about it. All your gold, they put it in a little metal pot, and they heat it up, melt it, and they bring it in as a big glob of gold. They don't even bother with bringing it as a ring, a necklace, or anything else anymore. That's how they handle it. Because that way, how am I going to say, Lisa, I got your gold ring, I got your gold necklace? Not anymore, because it's now into a big. So this is what's happening around. And your electronics goes right to New York now. Within a day, it's gone. So they were coming up, they're borrowing cars. Actually, what happened on Cleveland Street, they borrowed a car to do that B&E. It was a Cadillac STS. I mean, really? And it was only a couple years old, so. And he had to pay to borrow the car. So what I'm trying to tell you is the ways we find them is by making the stops. Now, they only want to hit, one of the things I tell you is the criminals only want to hit cities and towns where there's limited follow-up. So what I want to do is make sure we have a detective on every single day who can pursue the leads that are developed during the day. Now, that's the third thing. When I said there was 3 parts, we have to have a detective on who can follow them up. The towns that don't have enough time to follow up leads, that's the towns that they like to hit. And they find out because word of mouth down to the jail passes fast. So they all know when they get out, they do their 3 months, their 90 days, whatever, 6 months. They get out and they say, oh, Norfolk can't follow up any leads, they don't have time. Not enough officers. Let's hit them again. Probably not going to get caught, they're not going to catch us later. You either catch them before, during, or after. So it's one thing that's going on. So I'm trying to tell you some of the things that have happened. I think you understood that we had the tasers. They come in. Yes. We're having training Sunday morning here at this building. And then 3 weeks from that later, the 28th, another day, the rest of the department, we'll split the department in half. We have that. We did buy them. We'll find out how good they're going to work on that day because everybody has to get hit. Any volunteers, by the way? No? Okay. Can't believe it. One of the cruises that you gave us money for in the fall is in. It's out on the road. I don't know if anybody has seen it. Looks like a Ford Explorer. No, it's black, and it's got the lettering on the side. So we have one in. The other one they're still working on. You should see a number. It's 9. If you want to come down and take a look at it, by all means. You see the back seat. It's the new design. You had the plastic seat in the back. Plenty of room to get a prisoner in, which was one of the problems of the older one. There wasn't room to get anybody in. Between the cage that's between the front seat and the back seat, there just wasn't room. Now with that's set up, we have a gun vault in the back to put any of our shotguns or rifle that we carry in the cruisers, put them back there too. So, still running the DARE camps every year, the DARE program, still at the elementary school, still at the junior high. Steve runs 4 camps during the summer. It's 5th and 6th grades, 7th grade, 8th grade. It's probably the most successful thing, and it doesn't cost the town other than donations from the community, and we get huge donations to make sure that happens. Plus, there's a fee to go to the camp. That's about as popular as you can get. Everybody loves the towns around that are involved. Plainville, Rentham, as you know, and the teachers are involved. So, and everybody continuing. Stevie's in his 19th year as the DARE officer. I'm in my 19th year, 20th year now as chief. So, 4.5 more years. Then I'll be 65 and I have to go. You're about the same though, right?
Not quite that far. But
19 or 20, right?
in there, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember when you get on. Just so you know, we had over 10,000 incidents last year. There were 116 arrests, 14 in protective custodies, and we had 200 people summoned into court, and it resulted in 320 criminal charges. The officers who were able to had time to go out and do motor vehicle work, enforcement work, they had written 2,200 vehicles. They stopped 2,200 vehicles and wrote 1,400 tickets last year. So they're busy. I think I told you, I did tell you about Joe Castellano. Well, in April, we're going to be going to his award ceremony. So I just think that's a pretty good thing. Believe it or not, do you remember the gas explosion down at River's Edge?
Yes.
We put them in that year, and that was certainly more complex operation, and he handled it masterfully. It wasn't even in the top 5. So it tells you what was going on in that particular year. In this one here, he made it. They were actually going to do it on a TV on A&E channel, but the families wanted to remain anonymous, so we just let it go. But there's some some good things happening, and as far as the budget goes, I've hit the number. If you have any questions, I'm ready.
Just one, again, in hitting the number, what sacrifices have you made that you wish you didn't have to make?
One thing you know is that over the 20 years that I've been chief, we haven't been in for an advisory board transfer. I have not had to have my budget so far. I'm not going to jinx myself, but we have not. But what I can tell you is that I made a slight adjustment to, we always pick a particular officer for the median officer to base his overtime rate on for vacation. There's 2 places where the officers actually get first refusal on that overtime when people go out vacation, and half of the in-service. So if there's 40 hours of in-service, 20 of it is eligible for the officers to use for their in-service to get that overtime. So the place where I made the biggest adjustments was vacation. The other part, I didn't even think about it, but when I put in for the 18th person, I cut it back to cut out the college incentive, because in the new the law that was passed, new officers don't get the Quinn bill. So that was $7,000 for the year. There was some money taken out of vacation, and that's pretty much it.
You're budgeted for the new person to start as of when?
October 1st. Like I said, I'd like to have them July 1st, but and that was the change. So October 1st made it phased it in to later in the year.
Holly? Could you, thank you very much for sharing this in the numbers. Could you just walk me through, on the first page, you've got, looks like your payroll. Walk me through the changes between 13 and 14 in aggregate. I see a number of 1.9 million for fiscal 13 and 1.2 million for fiscal 14.
Oh, you know what? I didn't even look at that page. You say it's 1.856, is that what you're saying?
I rounded a bit, but yes, 1.856.
And the new number is 1.22, yeah. In the spreadsheet that was given to me, they put that all in that same column. It's actually, they included all of that money. That was the entire salary budget.
Oh,
So it's actually gone, it's actually less than that.
It's compare the 1856 to the 1945.
Oh, okay.
Year to year.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the total you're referring to.
Right.
That, okay.
I didn't adjust what was given to me. I only filled in the column to the right.
Okay.
Gotcha.
So it's gone up a little bit. It's the budget is right now at 90,000 increase over last year. I added up around, it was 38,000 higher than that. When I made the adjustments that I was asked to make, it brought it back down to there.
Okay. So presumably the 2453
Is
there.
Just formula here.
I was going to say, how would you manage to work this magic, Chief? You should have. That was
Experience in the job.
Do we have any other questions?
Do you want to hear about any other budgets? I got 3 more. Or are you satisfied with the police?
Oh. Oh, you have the
If we're doing-
animal
I
control
know we're
and,
not- Yeah, I know
yeah.
we're not talking about capital, but in the fall, I would be asking for 2 more vehicles,
Okay,
and it would be
Okay.
the same type vehicles.
all right.
So far, they're working out pretty well, handle very well. I think you'd be pleased to hear that, so.
so, yeah, no, I didn't mean to cut you off. If you have your other couple budgets, that you have anything you'd like to?
Yes. The other one is dispatch, communications. As you're well aware that we are working very, very hard towards completing the rec center over in Rentham. I'd say we're between 14 and 16 months out still.
Okay.
There's a lot more involved than I thought it would be. Part of the Franklin came in a little bit late in the game, and we had to make some adjustments there to move forward. But the place that we're going to use seems to be going to be the community center within the Rentham Police Department. Bids are going out. They've hired a project manager. They've followed all the rules that they need to follow. I think we're on the way, but just between construction and getting some certain agreements in place, and getting budget modifications changed, and just moving forward. I think we're in construction time and town meeting time and legislature time in order to formulate this group. It's going to take probably 14 months. So that's what we heard the other day.
So really, the beginning of 2015, most likely.
Yeah, I'm thinking that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
kind of where we were heading. So, but in all of that, the dispatch budget has gone up maybe $9,000. I thought we did pretty good at not having that go up so much. And in that budget, we will notice, if you have it or don't have it, no?
Oh, just the summary, sorry.
Oh, summary, all right.
Yeah.
Well, it went up a little bit. The one change I have in there is a dispatch supervisor. We will be heading in that direction. I wanted to get somebody who's more in charge of policy procedures and following that. And whoever that is, and I already know who it's going to be, I think we mentioned his name earlier, but it's going to be directly involved in running a shift for the 4 towns. So I put it in at 1.5% of his pay. So it's really not a lot of money. When you think about what they make, it's around 40.
Yeah.
So, but the budget,
Okay.
we had somebody leave who was making a little bit more than that. And we're now, as you know, when we lose a senior person, we go back to the beginning of the scale and the classification schedule. So it's a little bit easier on the wallet. Hillary's budget, do you want to go to Hillary's? Yes. Do you have any questions on
Unless
that
there's
one?
questions
No.
about the
Yeah.
communications budget, no?
I'm not sure it fits into the animal control budget either, but, and it may not be, there may not be any updates on it, but I am aware of lots of discussion about evolving school safety requirements, and I don't know if the state of Massachusetts has done anything, or the town of Norfolk, but is this a discussion you're having with the school committee, or any changes?
Not necessarily
coming-
with the school committee, but with Ingrid. We've gone, she and I have been to lectures on school safety. We've had somebody come in and do a check of the school. My Metro officer, Glenn Eichel, has been very involved with, prior to this construction, and then since construction, to make sure that everything is pretty good. We've been down there for cameras. They've actually installed just about as many as I asked for, which is unusual, but the whole idea is to make the school safer for the kids. And this was all prior to Sandy Hook. So, and then from there, it just kind of picked up steam. We're working on an MOU, memorandum of understanding, with the DA's office, the school, and the police. That's evolving. I think that probably, I'm not sure if I've hit what you were thinking about, but
I was wondering about what you're doing as a response, or perhaps taking the initiative, and if there are any budget consequences that you've noted so far. Have you been able to absorb additional demands, if there have been any?
right now, we haven't had a budget change as a result of what's going on down there. We understand that the computer system that was bought for the new school is really wide-ranging and is really a really good system. The man who comes from town, whose company made that system, tells us that we're only scratching the surface of its abilities, and that's typical of most computer systems, I think. Certainly my knowledge of a computer system, but the whole idea is to make it safe, so during the day, while they're open, I have my officers do a walkthrough at both of the facilities in our town, all three, actually. But I'm talking about the junior high school and the elementary schools. Do a walkthrough, I tell them to go in, walk around, get familiar with the school, know what's going on, know what each hallway goes to. If you want to go in and have lunch with the kids, do that. Get them to know you know them. So that's what we've been doing since before the beginning of the year, and we expanded that after Sandy Hook. That helps answer.
No, that's good, thank you.
Hillary's budget, only up a little bit. I don't think we only have one. We have to have her. The same as the animal inspector. We have to have that by statute. She does a good job, and she was made Animal Control Officer of the Year last year.
Oh, wow.
So, two recognitions for
Great.
the town of Norfolk in 1 year. That's pretty good.
Is she able to keep up with things? I mean, she's able to handle everything the town needs from her?
Yeah, pretty much. I think what you're going to see this fall is we're going to see if we can, for vehicle for her, and we're talking about a pickup truck with a cabinet on the back for her to store her equipment. The idea of using an old police cruiser, this thing, she's had it up there more times, the computers are going. And every time I've given my car speech, I know you all listen, and when you get 145, 150,000 miles on it, everything is worn out, and the wiring harness, the computers, the nodules, everything that's in there is just plain gone. And you start replacing it, and you're chasing it every single day. The engine block, the transmission, the drive, whatever you want to call it, drive chain, everything's rusted. I mean, we have trouble just getting windshield wipers to work sometimes, and you got to have them all year long. So we proposed a pickup truck. It's an F-150, and that's what you'll see for the fall if we get to capital and there is any capital money. If not, we'll nurse this thing along and see if we can keep it working. But
We thought we had it last year, but
I
it got
know.
yanked away,
I know.
you know?
That's the only other vehicle that I can think of that we're going to be looking at, two for the police and one for animal control. So,
Anything else? No? Anything you'd like to add?
no, we're very thankful for the support we have had for the capital, because we're getting ready to go down with the cars that we have. We got a couple that are really tired, so a couple more that are not the ones that are going out the door. So, we got some others that are pretty tired, so hoping to see two for the fall for sure.
All righty.
That's it. But thank you very much for all your support for the police, and someday I hope we're going to see that station.
Well, you've.
I know this committee has been pretty good about it.
I
so.
think you've got support here, if we could just persuade those who are out there
No.
when the time to vote comes.
In fairness, when we went with that, we were just about heading into the fiscal crisis. And I think people were so concerned about that. I think in another year, maybe two at the most, I think that people are going to feel a little bit better. And I honestly think that we'll be able to get the votes that we need. The missing 15, I should say, or missing 19, whatever it was. But I'd like to think that that's a possibility in the future.
I hope you're right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you
Again,
very much.
thank you very much for coming to see us tonight and for everything you do for the town.
Thanks.
All righty, Mr. McGee. Yes, we do have what you have given us, our usual
Send that down.
leaflet.
Marley, can you get-
If anybody doesn't have one, we do have a couple still left here. So, welcome, and introduce yourself to the vast audience sitting there.
Good evening. Bob McGee, Director of Public Works, here to present our budget request for FY 214. I think Marion passed out to you gentlemen, members, 3-page report. I know in the past you've seen us come in with a red book and it was kind of scary. There was just too much information, and I appreciate your advice on that. So coming back to you with this here, and if you have it in front of you, I think I can explain what you're looking at. Basically, we have, the 5 divisions, and, budget is just salaries and expenses, and there's some debt service numbers in there as well. Below that, we have some fixed expenses, things that, the numbers just come to us, and this is what it is. We don't ask for more or less. It is from a spending standpoint and a historical review that these numbers are accurate. You might, just staying with the fixed expenses, you might notice that the snow and ice, we've asked for an increase through the selectmen for another $25,000. You know that budget, how it works, and how it disappoints us this time of the year, but just to put more money into it now is just a good discipline. It just takes the pain out of the real cost at the end of the year. And
Now, you say you've asked the selectmen, have they, to your knowledge, is this going to appear in the final budget this way, or do you still have no?
I said we, and I stand with the selectmen on that. Actually, it was the selectmen that, it was Rob that asked for this. And I think it's just a great idea. I mean, you could just throw another $100,000 into it, and all it's going to do is ease the pain later. But, this was the decision, and I think it's a step forward.
Totally agree.
If you, you can look at the front page, and it's pretty much the general fund. And I'll tell you quickly, the second page is our enterprise account, and that's the water. Although we treat, on the first page there, the general account, although we treat the solid waste, it is a revenue base, it's still supported by the general fund. The water revenue is the second page, and to make it even more simple, I could have put the third page up front, depends on how you want to look at it, but that's a summary of the summary.
Gotcha.
And so what I think I'll do, unless, because it's pretty much a budget that is better if I answered questions, but basically, if you look at the third page, the summary of the summaries, I said, the total salaries in the general fund, we're looking for an increase of $65,801. And what that really represents is we have a situation where it's kind of like 3-ply. We have an organizational structure that shows 3 superintendents. One of them, we had those positions filled. One of them, our highway and ground superintendents, left us just recently, went on to something different and better. And in the last 2 years, we've interviewed and hired 2 superintendents, and they went off onto into their own business. No reflection on the department. They were great people. If I could have kept them, I would have. It was mutual. They haven't got a bad word to say, I don't think. But nonetheless, it presents an opportunity for us that I think that we almost have to cash in on, and that is that we haven't the increase in salaries is in highways and grounds. I never saw the presentation that the selectmen presented to you, so I'm not sure how that went, how you saw it, but I'm speaking with Jack a half a dozen times since then. I'm pretty sure that our selectmen support this budget. But what's going on, again, is because the superintendent now has left, and what he's done, a good thing is that he's left a salary behind. With that, what we'd like to do, if this works out, it's kind of like a chess match. It's, what comes first? You staff it first, or you budget it first, and you got to budget it first and hope that things work out as you move people around sideways and up. So with that superintendent gone, what we want to do is we want to take, if it works out, we're going to advertise the position. It's been in the paper. We want to see what's out there for professionals. But I think at this point where we've had two superintendents, what we'd like to do is take a good look and give some opportunity to our foreman existing. He's been here for some 20-plus years, and, you know, no matter who you put in a position, you're not going to get the perfect human being. You know, you're going to have what they bring and what they don't have and so forth. But without naming names, I think what we'd like to do is take this foreman, move him up to the superintendent's entry level, and because he's been here so long, he leaves a pretty healthy salary too. And so if he decides to take it, and we approve the budget and he decides to take it, he's going to be leaving his salary, which is a reflection of somebody that's been in that position for 20 years, and it's up there. And we want to do away with the foreman's position. We've done it in every other division. We didn't do it in this because he was here. He's a good employee. He's grandfathered, and as I think you could say. And but if he takes this opportunity, now we have another opportunity to eliminate that position, that salary, and bring on two assistant superintendents at a far less salary. There's some increases with that, of course, because we're bringing in two people for the price of one. But again, it works out to an increase of about a half a salary. When you see the salaries increase here and you see that $68,000, a good 50% of that is just contractual increases. So what we're really looking for is to increase the personnel with two assistant superintendents, really at the cost of $33,000. If, for instance, an impact would be that if this were not to work out, whether the budget was passed as we're presenting it or our employee didn't move up the ladder or something like that, what would happen is I'd have to come back to the town with another budget that would reflect greater expenses. So there's a lot of factors in here that make this work. I'm hoping that it does. I'm hoping that he takes the position. I'm hoping that we can grow. And then when he leaves that position, the two superintendents would come from within, and those people that have been here a few years will move up, leaving their salaries. And then people will move up to take that salary, but they'll be taken at a lesser rate. But I'm trying to tell you, it's good. It's good. It's really good. And I hope you can see that. I can. It's quite a sell, but it's just an opportunity that you just can't pass us by. If you take a look at the expenses in the general fund, we followed instructions given to us by the town administrator with no increases to expenses other than contractual obligations, things that were negotiated with the union. So basically, for an entire DPW expense, we're asking for an increase of $2,400, and that was negotiated with the union, and that reflects boot allowance. And that's another good thing. It's a healthy and it's a good safety issue, steel-toe boots and so forth. I think if you look around to other towns, you're going to find out that that's common. I won't try to sell that. But one of the other things, too, is that if, like I mentioned before, if this didn't work out, we'd have to increase expenses. With these two new positions, what it does is it gives us a real hands-on supervision of the highway and a real hands-on supervision of the grounds with two people that will step up with experience instead of one foreman that tries to spread himself thin through the mowing of lawns, through the lawn care, through intersection improvements, because we have memorials in 12 different locations of the town. We just don't get to them, and they overgrow, and there are memorials, and they represent fallen soldiers and so forth, and I think now that we're going to be able to do it. So we're going to, with this proposal, if approved, we're going to cut back on our contractual services that include lawn care. Not much, but we're still going to bring them in, and we're still going to bid out spec out and bid the lawn care in town and stuff like that. But there's some variables there that Freeman Kennedy isn't done yet. It's a different animal because you have islands now that need to be. I'm getting into too much detail, I guess, but there's still some fields that aren't developed. There is a scope of work that just isn't in front of me to describe yet, so it's difficult to go out there and try to write a spec and have a contractor come in, ask for funding when I'm not even sure until it materializes, and it will probably in the fall. So we're going to have some cuts in the fall because we're going to just seed this year, and we'll get the summer rye up, and so, basically that's what it is for the general fund. And I brought the water budget with me, and I squeezed it in there and so forth. But looking at the summary pages, as I called it, if you want to flip back to the first two pages that or the first page you looked at, if you have any questions. One of the things I'll mention before you raise any questions is with personnel that we have, we generate revenue. It's not reflected here, but I can tell you this with this opportunity that starting last year, the planning board, we have subdivisions coming in, and they're coming in a little bit quicker. There's more building and development going on. Now that the recession seems to be taking a swing upward, we're seeing the housing market come back. And what happens is when we have a subdivision proposed, and there's a handful of them out there, and building sites as well, we inspect those. Before, it was the planning board that was inspecting them, and through cooperation with them, because they've been great to us, but they were paying their consultants to do that at a greater rate of pay. As our subdivisions and homes and infrastructure are being built, the DPW eventually takes it over throughout time. So it kind of makes sense that we see it be constructed. We gain that historical knowledge. We know how it is. We know the specifications and the parts that we need. So when we go out there and repair streets and stuff like that, we see that everything's being done. And we charge the developer for that. So you don't even see the revenue comes in, but if I gave you a quick number, I'd say there's another $20,000 that comes in, and another part of the good thing.
And the corresponding say something less than that, well, no, never mind. The developers pay that. So I was thinking the planning board would benefit from that to some extent, but that's not a factor. Never mind. Wrong page.
It all works out good. The planning board, we couldn't do it without the planning board. The planning board, as you know, does other things. When a development comes in and is proposed and so forth, the planning board negotiates off-site mitigation. They go ahead and they get us funds to rebuild some infrastructure adjacent to it as a result of the impact and so forth.
Yep.
So it's very thankful for some of the bidding that they've done for us. I was going to say something else too. Yeah, one other last selling point. I think I've sold this thing is still that maybe you'll understand it's a good deal. But the last thing is that with this new personnel, we've been doing this anyways, but it's going to allow us to do it. We contribute to town projects where normally, for instance, let me get right to the point, the school, I don't know what the school was, a $33 million budget or something like that. Went out to bid. Fontaine took the bid over. They built the school. We have a design engineer still on board until that's done, but we took some of that work away from that bid and we built the access road. It wasn't part of the bid anyways, but if it were to be done by the big city union outfits and so forth, probably would have cost triple to 4 times more than what we're doing it right now, because we just have that expertise and we have the people now. We're scarce, but we have the people now, including myself, that oversees that. So we put together an estimate to put that in, put the lighting in, put the infrastructure in, the drainage, and we're doing a $200,000, probably a $500,000 project. That's one thing. There's a handful of projects that go on in this town from other departments that we support, and we contribute to that. And we do it with our personnel and our staff. And thanks to the selectmen again. I'm thanking everybody here, but it's all good planning. And
Bob, is there any reason that we need to maintain a separate cemetery division? I mean, couldn't that just be wrapped into grounds? It looks like by what you're reducing dollar-wise here, you're sort of moving towards that anyways, shifting dollars out of the cemetery budget and over to
grounds.
Grounds.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality is, shouldn't we just have a grounds division that happens to have to maintain the cemetery?
Pretty much, I think we do that. The only reason we separate out is because there's a revolving account there for cemetery. So it's singled out for financial reasons. No more than that, because It is. It's high. It's grounds and cemetery,
Yeah. Okay.
and it's the same people that maintain it. And you know, when we go out, and I mentioned that lawn care bid and so forth, we do ball fields, we do the cemeteries. There's 2 cemeteries, and you know, we do these memorials and all these other things that you know, we get the town ready for the parades. We do the street sweeping for all that, and we hang all the banners, and you know, that's what the grounds do. And not to answer,
I'm just thinking-
your cemetery, but.
It won't be my issue, but in future, it's like, I don't even know why I
Just
listed
budget 'em-
separately, just
fine, just budget 'em
budgeted
as
as
one
one division.
department.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's a separate revenue source that matches, but, yeah, the revenue can stay there. I just think you need to show one less line there.
Could do it. It's not worth much. You see, it's only a $20,000 bill, but it's,
We certainly
I
see
could
smaller
sneak
line
that in
items
there
in the
and-
budget, but, yeah, I mean, I think it's a good point. To the extent we can simplify, why not? I assume the selectmen would have to sign off on that.
yeah, that'd be a small and easy
But
thing to
it's a
do.
good suggestion.
Our financial software has different numbers for
Yeah, each
holding that
department.
money, and then that's all.
I
If you
know
look,
when I was on the cultural council, with our $2,000 annual budget, we had 4 different accounts in the accounting system
Yeah.
for a $2,000, $2,500 annual budget, so, yeah.
if you look even way down at the bottom of the front page here, Officer of Veterans
Yeah.
Graves, that somehow,
Yeah.
that's not in the math. When you do, see the yellow line highlighted down, like the 1752
Yeah.
or whatever that is, 1792, 186? That veteran graves of $2,200, it's there because we manage it, but it is not inserted into our budget. It's held in accounting. So there's
Who does the
Just to add to
$700 go to?
excuse me?
Who does the $700 go to? Who is the,
The salary.
We have an office, retired,
oh, so it's not
and
an
he manages
existing
it,
employee?
and it's, his name's John. Let's just leave it at that. I don't, yeah.
But and how is that
Surprised
not
that's
part
a
of the
salary.
veterans budget?
Seems like it ought to be an expense.
I can't even tell you where it's
Do we
hidden,
have
but
a
it's,
veterans budget too? No, maybe not. Yes.
Yes, in the human services, Mark. There's a veteran services.
Yeah, which I know are different people, but
Right.
make it one budget, and certainly not in the DPW,
Well,
because I assume his $1,500 is just flags, right? That whole expense is
Right.
probably just flags. Or markers,
just
maybe.
things like that,
It's not
right?
DPW related, it's marking veterans' graves.
Right. And, if I showed you some, because what I did was, when I first got here and stuff like that, I took our budgets and I went back, back to 1995 until I had solid records and stuff, and I don't even think we spend that. But it goes back into a revolving fund, so it's harmless. It's kind of, there it is.
Yeah.
A couple of years maybe we did spend. I just can't remember. But that's basically our general fund.
All right, great.
what's the situation with respect to the roads, maintenance, repair, budget?
Wasn't sure if it was an opportune time to talk capital. What's the difference? We don't have any. But I could
That was
give
a
you some
question
insight.
I think fairly sure that you would be asked by at least one of us is what your capital issues are going to be.
We've been, Ollie knows what I'm going to talk about, like, we've been able to skirt some of that through the budget. The needs of, the capital needs that basically our capital needs, and at least in DPW, represent really 2 things. It's building and construction, mostly flat work, and some buildings, but repairs. But and the other thing is vehicle replacement. We don't have money for it. Some of the things that we did do was we've inserted a line into our budgets, special projects budgets, and now maybe you know what we're talking about, Ollie, like the compactors last year. It was a one-time hit, and you'll see that was taken out of solid waste. We didn't leave it in there to try to fool anybody. We took it right out. Thank you very much. That program is underway. I don't have great statistics for you, other than from, say, Christmas till now, these compactors are keeping our trucks off, just like we predicted. We just never, we could only take a good shot at, what the weight is and the weight versus the trips up, the 70-mile round trips and all those calculations that we went back and forth on and stuff like that. It's working out. It's freeing up our guys. It's taking our trucks off the street. It's doing an ecological benefit of, keeping the emissions out of the air. But it's resting our trucks and the equipment, and it's allowing our men to free up to do, because we have a new source of revenue and materials now. So we're taking our demo material that people bring in, the brush and stuff. We grind it up and we make chips. We take gravel. We grind it up and we make a processed material. Now we don't have to go buy it. So that comes out of, that saves from the budget and so forth. So it's just a good continuity of so back to the capital. If I were to, put my finger on a couple of things that we need to do in capital from a DPW standpoint. First of all, I've heard the fire chief and the police chief, and I know their living conditions over there, so I'm not going to ask, because I think that the DPW is begged for building expansion and so forth. I can't even imagine that, as long as these guys are up on what they do for a safety bill in that condition. So forget that. I'm not even going to mention it. I think our greatest needs are the town's moving parts, and that's our infrastructure and roads. We had the road program. I've never seen it since I've been here. I guess it was taken away a couple of years before I got here, but we got to start getting serious about what these streets look like, because it's not just the street on the surface, it's the infrastructure underneath. It's because there's, like I said, a lot of moving parts. And we, as long as we have some manpower, we can keep ourselves in business. But these roads are starting to fall apart altogether. It's the worst thing that could ever happen in the DPW, because because the only funding source that we have is Chapter 90 and, the budget. And the budget is really just a reactionary budget. It's nothing prevented about our budget at all. It's there, and we use it for, when something breaks. You don't want to wait for things to break. You want to get out there and have a program, to proactive program. But the road program's gone, and so we use Chapter 90 to stay ahead of it, but we're not staying ahead of it. We're breaking. How can I make how can I be sure that what I'm telling you is right? I just got a good feeling that we're just below breaking even. We need to start investing into our infrastructure, streets and so forth, because they're coming apart. Just go up to Pheasant Hill and take a look at it. Just go up to the Noon Hill side of Fruit Street and take a look at Naugatuck and Seneca. Roads you probably never even heard of. But there are...
I live on one of those.
Oh, do you?
I was going to bring it up, as a matter of fact.
Is that right? Lawrence Street. They're all over the place, and they're falling apart altogether. It's the worst thing. We need to stagger our deterioration with repairs. So if there's money and it comes to the fall, I've talked to the selectmen what I'd like to do, and I think what you'll find is a practice in a lot of towns is if you don't have a road program, you identify your streets, your deteriorated streets, and you got to take care of your main streets, because simply 30,000 cars drive on that a day, and then your secondaries, you get 10,000 cars, and when you get into the neighborhoods, you only have 5 cars. But certainly the big money issues are Main Street for us, Seekonk Street. You know that they're going apart, and I'd like to see those be put on the warrant as a capital, and that we use Chapter 90 for maintenance up to overlays. And it's a plan that's successful, and it's a plan that that's most towns adopt. But our situation is unique, and we don't have that. We don't have the Emerald Square malls and all the income and so forth. So we live and die on tax dollars here. And but if we ever get ahead, that's where my capital request would be. And then shortly right after that would be equipment, because we can't do any repairs without equipment.
What would be a good, not necessarily great roads budget for a town like us? We've been pretty consistently getting around 400 grand, Chapter 90. What would you need on top of that to do a decent job of maintaining the roads on an annual basis?
I would say another $400,000. Just realistic, because it's not just about the paving. You got to go back in and you got to start replacing pipes. We have something coming around the corner, and you just made me think of something. Is our it's called SWIMMY. I forget it's an acronym for stormwater. It's a new permit that's coming out, and it's attached it with a lot of money. The stormwater regulations are coming upon us where we're going to have to enforce them, or we'll be penalized if we don't. We're learning more and more about it. The draft is around the corner, and then towns will have an opportunity to comment on that. And, you know, they've done this a couple of years ago, and most of the towns got together and just, like, threw it back at the DEP and say, that's just crazy. It's just too expensive. You've got to create another division almost, a drain division, to stay on top of this. But that's what's going on. It's around the corner. I don't know what's going to happen. But there's a lot going on. So to just answer your question, I think modestly, I'd say, you know, $350,000, $400,000, and then take the Chapter 90s, and then we can do the overlays for the streets that haven't totally fallen apart, salvage them for another 10, 12 years. There's a plan. There's a whole pavement management. I've started on it when I got here. Butch moved on, and I kind of abandoned it because I'm trying to do what I'm doing now. But I'm trying to teach down now to our superintendents. So we need to go out, and we need to at least every 3 years do an entire sweep survey of the town, an OCI, an overall condition report for our pavements, for our infrastructure, rate them in the worst condition, and so that when you sort them, you know, if you got, you know, like this speech I always say, you know, we've got this much work, but we've got this much money. So how do you spend that money? You got to identify your worst conditions, and you got to go after them to some degree, and then you got to, you know, attack streets before they get to worst conditions. There's theories on it, but that's all I can offer for capital.
Alrighty. Other questions on the general budget?
Can I ask just, two questions? To understand, we've got kind of a ballet of positions going on, if I understood you correctly. But at the end of the day, you're going to propose one additional headcount for the division. Is that correct?
Right.
One additional head count for the price of a half of a position,
Right.
and less than that even.
And why the additional head?
Because because right now what we're trying to do is we're trying to we have one foreman's position, and it's overseeing two subdivisions, the grounds and the highway, and it's ineffective. We've tried it, it's not working. And like windows open and shut, opportunities come and go. There's a situation now because our superintendent left. I'm going back on reiterate what I've said. So it's an assistant superintendent is, an assistant foreman is more a labor force type guy with the experience, with accountability. He's going to see that our crews get out in the morning, he's going to bring them back safely at night, and he's going to concentrate, and that's going to be his little company that he's going to make real good at. And in grounds, the same thing. We have, again, this much work, but it's a labor effort. So we need that one extra guy. He's going to be good at grounds and have that expertise there, and he's going to bring his guys out, and he's going to stay with them, and he's going to work. There's going to be a shovel in his hand, and he's going to be a supervisor. And right now, we need to afford to do that. Didn't work the last 3 years.
And thank you for that. The expansion of the solid waste and is kind of amazing. Whenever I go there, the amount of recycling, I guess, or that you're working on how much more revenue are we getting now from those activities?
You know what it is that when, I don't want to give you a political answer to that, because I just don't know. Because anytime you start a business, you need to front some money and let some time go by before you see results, unless you're lucky enough to mine gold. So what we do is we try to be honest about our projections. So because the fiscal year ends in July and not the calendar year and so forth, so we take quantities from an actual year. So we take FY12 now is gone. We'll take FY12 quantities and we'll multiply those times the fees that we have established for our new products and so forth. And we calculate or project what we think that we're going to make in the coming year for revenue. However, in taking 2012 quantities, we never had the materials. So we don't, so it's almost like we need to, either you're going to trust me with my projections, or I'm going to say we're going to do 3,000 yards of loom, and, so you either can trust me with that, or you're just going to have to let a couple of years go by. But feel comfortable, it's working. It's working. Again, I'm famous for my little speeches, but everybody that comes into that solid waste station, or all the materials that come down the street on Medway Branch, we collect a little bit for, even if it's just pennies. And then when it goes out processed. It doesn't get buried in the landfills anymore, and we get paid for it. And all we're doing is we treat it like an enterprise account. We're trying to wash costs so that we can keep the sticker price here. We're not trying to build revenue, although at the end of the, we could, like in water, get ahead of the game, create a retained earnings, and loan against that, and so forth and so on. Enterprise.
But the materials such as loam, you said, and do you do mulch also? Is that
Right. Not a lot of money in
So
that.
you're not really, so those, if you're converting that into stuff, you sell that stuff back out?
Right.
So that's kind of almost pure profit, right? I mean, I know you have costs to get it screened and chipped and all that
Well, I
stuff,
think-
but you're not paying, there's no cost for those materials coming in.
Well, we process them. We need equipment to turn them over. We need crushers and fuel to, break them down, separate them, and we need people to do that. So there's an investment. And we never want to be in competition with local vendors to put them out. This is something that, if you can stay in the mindset, that we want to encourage people to come to the recycling center. And if we can provide these great prices, maybe they'll buy a sticker and do their sort separation of recycling and get rid of their trash with us, as opposed to, I hope someday we never get into a town-wide trash collection. A lot of people don't know this, but the DPW and many other towns have a dedicated maintenance program to go around and collect trash on the sides of the streets. The wind blows in certain directions. You can always find out where it is. We don't do that here because we don't have the trash. The litter on the side of the road come from those trash trucks. They blow out, and that's how they get. It's not kids running down with the streets and throwing cigarette packs out, McDonald's. They're coming out of the back because kids don't do that anymore. They're as conscious as can be. It's coming from that, but we don't have that program. So now people are coming. They're, real attentive to what we're trying to do here. And, that along with the solar panels, the end of Medway Branch is a pretty cool place,
Are you seeing our sticker numbers are staying level, or?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Well, but again, we asked you for a little bit of money, and you haven't seen any return on it yet. It's coming. Already this year, we just have orders. We didn't even start yet. Everybody can't wait to get a hold of that loom that we have. Instead of paying, the $24, we're selling it for $12. Where are you going to get that? We discourage contractors from coming in because they can wipe out our supply. We're only, we try to keep this business going for 20 years, not just a quick hit for 3 years. So if we go, another thing that, like our superintendents do and myself, we'll see a house being built and the foundation being dug and there's materials there, we might stop and say, hey, what are you going to do with that stuff? We've got a great place to dump it. You can dump it for $1. And we ship it out after we process it for $12. So we need to also have supply, kind of like eBay,
So there is a figure in the budget for receipts from sale of loam and things like that?
If you, to track revenue, you're asking?
I mean, there'll be a budget that I guess will be voted in sooner or later, and it will have a revenue in it.
Right.
And cash collections, and I recall, God knows if this is correct, that we actually had $14,000 worth of revenue from the sale of loam and stuff like that last year. It's my vague recollection. Is there still $14,000 in the budget? Is it more? Is it less? Is it?
Right, but I wouldn't, yes, the answer is yes. I think to get to your question, but a budget's a budget, and it's not a revenue. Revenues don't get approved, bring it on, fees get approved. So the revenue, comes, it falls into the general, we track it through, through record keeping, but it falls into the general fund account. The budget will get approved. What you do, I think, you know this business better than I do, so you know what I'm saying. Like, you first do a cost of service, to find out what it costs to operate, and then you can figure out your budget. It's kind of like what we do on water.
Arlie, Jack's got transfer station revenue at $392,000 budgeted FY13, and he's got it at $401,000 budgeted FY14. So he's showing a $9,000 budget increase.
Right. And is that where Salem Loam and things like that would show up?
Oh, definitely. I could provide that for you at any time. We have a total revenue sheet all lined out, prices, quantities, and projections.
Yeah, I'd be interested in seeing that. I know it's kind of old-fashioned, but if it's not too much trouble.
Sure. It's kind of, and again, the difficult part of that is we project the future. Didn't happen yet. So we get a whole spring ahead of us. So when we show you a number, it's a projection using FY12 numbers, so it's very modest. It's better to stay conservative. Why get everybody's hopes up and then something happens? But I can tell you it's going good.
Great.
That doesn't hold up in court, but I'm...
I think it's it's certainly to explain a little bit why I probe on these things, it's a very visible and, to all eyes, very successful and impressive achievement at the transfer station of doing a lot. There's apparently quite a bit of activity, and it looks like lots of good stockpiles of things are being created. And I think to the extent that you can quantify the benefits that the town is beginning to realize, I think it's a good thing. I mean, that's a positive, just like talking about how much money we make from those solar cells. These
Right.
are investments that the town makes over time, and it's good to get some tracking on how they get paid off.
Right. I agree.
Sorry, and one more question, just remembered. Are you pumping any more out of the old landfill?
We do. We get we have that leachate tank, and
But is it going up?
no, it's when we felt that we were in trouble 3 years ago. Remember, we had all those rains from 2010. It was just saturation. So all rules were off the board. It was flooding everywhere, and what we think is going on, just as a bit of information, with a little bit of money, what we're trying to do on the uphill gradient of the landfill, want to try putting in a curtain drain, because water migrates with gravity downhill, and downhill of that is the landfill. Landfill compresses, but in theory, it's all capped, it's rubber bottom, and that water that's generated out of there should come through some enormous weight. Sometimes you see solar flares and it releases the pressures that way and stuff, but that leachate we think is getting infiltrated with groundwater. So we're going to try to head that off with a curtain drain, and what that is we're going to just trench to a certain elevation, just a trench about this wide in front of, to separate the downhill movement of the water in between that and the leachate, and try to get that water to fall off a cliff into this curtain drain, and on this side of it, put an impervious, almost like tar paper, not something that passes water, but holds back the water, so the water will hit that, go down, get in this pipe, and go out clean to a manhole that we already have in place.
Okay.
And we're going to redirect that back into the, back into the natural.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully, if that works, we'll be pumping less leachate, because we see an influence with rain, and it shouldn't be happening. Because, again, like I said, the cover on the landfill is made up, it's a clay material, it's impervious, it's got loam, and it's got a root system. So the roots should drink a little bit, and the rest of the water should sheet off to the swales that we have. But the influence with rain is so evident that something's failing with that. It's just, we're not going to go strip the cap again and try to do it. We're going to try to intercept that now. And we just have, it burns me that we have to pay to get rid of water. Because much of that water is just discolored with iron. You don't want to drink it, but it looks worse for somebody passing by than what's really in it, because we do cultures on it and with our LSP and stuff. So,
Does that work? You guys will do yourself that curtain drain?
yeah. No, I mean, I might sub it out, but, the people need direction. It's just a mini excavator, and, when we have the materials, and I say that we recycle them, we have spoils. A lot of the spoils are the rock. So we'll use that instead of buying it and, fill that in. So our investment's going to be labor, equipment costs, a couple of days, and pipe. So it'd be fairly inexpensive.
Ready to go on to the water?
Sure.
On to the water. I noticed a significant drop in debt services. Did something end?
Capital. You don't buy things, you don't have to pay for it. Just so happens, if you look at it, if you spread out our debt service over 20 years, we haven't been making any purchases and things are getting paid off. And there's a weird little thing, I think next year it even goes up a little bit. I'm not quite sure financially why, and I don't want to get you, but it happens. But it's going to continue to drop off until we make some purchases, and then, it'll.
Do we need to make some purchases, Bob, or are we at a stage in the water system where?
We do.
Okay.
We do, and I, if you look at if you look closely at the, kind of in the theory that what I was talking about before, where we don't really have, we haven't been accepting capital projects, but we insert special projects. In this water budget, we had a special project last year that was thankfully approved, and we were able to make an interconnection with the town of Franklin. And we were also, there's a little bad news in water too, and it's not the way it's being operated. It's just that the supply is kind of, it's trending down on our wells. So, and that segues into what I'm about to tell you. And so last year, our spending went, with the special projects, where we had enough money to clean wells. But that's like the second time we've done it in 3 years. Usually you want to do 3 to 5 years, but we've got such a decline at the Spruce Road well that we needed to replunge it and put, chemicals to keep the iron and manganese out of the cone of influence and so forth. But now that you know that we need to find new source development. We need to drill for other wells, and that will come on. And we have a special project request in here to help us with that. But the $75,000 in the special projects that we're asking for in this budget, if you were to get a breakdown of the line items, is dedicated to not just new source development, the beginning stages of test wells, but we need to stir the tanks. The 2 1 million gallon tanks that we have are subject to heat, which could cause bacteria, and you want to get that water stirred on the hot days and so forth. So we're looking to get that done. 2 tanks. We've gotten prices right now, preliminary prices from $30,000 to $75,000 for each one. So if we can, through our consultants, and we have a new water superintendent on board who's also an engineer. Guy's pretty sharp. Someday I hope that you'll meet him. I mean, he's really sharp. He came from working in water and mechanical as part of his background in engineering. But so one of the purchases we want to make this year is to stir the tanks and to go out and do a couple of quick drill holes around town to find if there is water yielding there. And then from there, when we have a good idea that there's a water in this place and we can even use that land, we've got a cost breakdown to install another well, from the permitting to the construction to drinking water. And that can run over $1 million. But you don't want to just go out and tell the DEP want to drill here and drill here. We want to go out and do a couple of holes before they get here, and for a lot less money, to know that there's some source there. Study the water to find out what it's, what the rate is coming out at and what's its composition. Is it clean, or has it got iron or manganese? Too much iron and manganese, they're going to start looking at filtration systems. There's another $1 million. Fortunately, in this town, we get some good drinking water, and it's gravel pack wells, and a lot of people don't seem to think that. I think most people do, but we've got a great drinking water right now. But we need to be active now, because the process is 5 to 7 years to keep us in water, and we have new subdivisions going in. So that's where we're headed, and that's the capital foresight that I see here.
So even though the expenses are down $28,000, buried in that is the $75,000 you were talking about for,
Yes.
so there has to be serious drop-off happening in
We
other
did.
areas.
We did. We looked at we looked closely at the budget, and we saw, some spending. For instance, there's good news and there's bad news. For instance, we took $15,000 out of meter replacement, because meter replacement, we find that the meters that we put in 7 years ago, they're AMCO meters, they went out of business. So we don't need the money right now to go replacing something that's gone extinct. So we need to, and the fact that we need to replace meters is, number one, because, first of all, they break down and you need to do it, but we're under consent with the DEP as a result of all the leaks that we had some years, the last few years that we've captured and we've been on top of and doing real good at. I think you guys, probably know what I'm talking about. We had a rate of almost 50% on certain days. We could have fed 2 Norfolks, but 1 Norfolk was going into the ground, so to speak. Right now, we're down to like 10, 15%, and I don't know too many towns that can say that. We got it stuffed down our throat, and we fought that battle, and we're looking good in that. So unaccounted for water is as good as any place you'll go. But little things like that, the meter replacement, we put money back on. We had new chemicals treating our water, just, a little bit of chlorine. We have this ortho-poly, I'm going to say this 3 times fast, ortho-polyphosphate was a new additive that we put in because it kind of, as part of the leak detection, this new ortho-polyphosphate, it's just a food-based ingredient that lines the inside of the walls. It keeps those pinholes from going and therefore recovering the unaccounted for water. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Good. That's a tough one to explain, but it's just a preventative leak detection, a leak preventative thing. So we've taken some money out of the budget just because it's just sat there, and and after 2 or 3 years, if you don't have the need for it, but you know that the enterprise account, if you don't use it, it goes right back in. We don't go try to spend it just to improve office or anything like that. We're dedicated to this, and it goes back in. So that's water on the expense side.
The salaries for water, those are basically just negotiated or
No,
scheduled?
it is that,
Person.
and we're looking to bring on one more person. And largely, that's going to be supplemented by savings in the expenses.
What role is that, Bob, that you're looking to bring on this coming year?
Well, right now, what we have, I'll just tell you from the top, we have a superintendent of water, and we've broken water into 2 divisions where it's not really into, we can say that it is. There's treatment and there's distribution. Distribution being the transmission of water, the underground utilities and so forth. Treatment is the, treatment of water to make sure that when it comes up that we have a treatment, a UV treatment. It's a very natural treatment. It's done by ultraviolet. And we also have these other additives and so forth. But, so you really have, when you have 2 pump stations, you need to have daily operations, inspections of these. You need to go through, just like an airplane when you get in, check, check, check. We need to go through these pump stations every single day, not one day out of the year. For the last 50 years, does it go unmanned? And we've been paying for that through consultants who have the licenses and can only do it. Now what we're doing is we're getting our employees to get these licenses. And they're going to have to labor under our consultants for a certain amount of time, and then we can push the consultants away to consult and not be a part of the labor force. So again, you probably think I'm a salesman, but that's a great, it's a good thing to do. To have people on our own payroll looking over after our water, being around the corner, instead of having a consultant from Plymouth having to make 3 phone calls to get somebody up here. And the knowledge is just, I've become a better man because we have that in-house now. And more knowledgeable person. So that's what it is. We're looking to increase one salary there on the treatment side.
And I presume this all results in no change in the water rate.
None at all, no.
What's the fund, what do you call it?
Retained earnings.
Yeah, retained earnings. What's that amount at now?
Retained earnings is certified certain times of the year, twice a year or something like that, but I think when we were at about $50,000 4 years ago, last I knew we were up over $400,000. So I think when our next certification, we're probably going to be up around $700,000. And you can almost be warned about that, because you can't continue to increase your retained earnings, because if you got all this money up there, then you don't need your rates to be that high either. With that retained earnings, we can do some of this work. There's more moving parts on water than there is in anything else. Water's under pressure. There's exercising things, there's gates. So if there was a water main break, any part of any main on any street, there are shut-off gates. And if that happens at 2 o'clock in the morning, you need to get out there, because that water out of a 12-inch main can just wash an entire street down into a wetland or something like that, and it gushes, and it's very intense if you haven't experienced it. But you need to go out. You need to know that these water gates can be shut down so you can stop the flow to that break, and you need to exercise these things. The worst thing you can do is go out there and find out that there's much sand in it, because it's 6 feet in the ground. It's 4.5, 5 feet down. So as a program, you want to go out and inspect your water gates, clean them out, exercise them, make sure that they turn, and things like that. So it's just a lot going on,
When I first came on this committee, something close to 5 years ago, that fund was at about $1 million. And everybody was concerned that it was too much and building up too fast. But over the course of 4 years, roughly, $1 million, a few $400,000 projects, and all of a sudden that was down to the,
Oh, sure.
$100,000, $50,000 that you were talking about. So, I don't know what the right number is, but certainly it seems like the kind of thing you want to have several $100,000 at least on hand, because you can have a $400,000 project that you can
Pay for.
deal with, as opposed to having to bond it or whatever.
Right.
So,
Bob, driving the surpluses, is it underspending on the expense or more revenue than anticipated in the budget?
Well, debt service right in front of you is $82,000 less than it was last year.
Right.
So that's a big hit. And then I hope I'm answering your question. And then we took $28,000 out of expenses.
No, I'm probably more. So you were mentioning it might go up 200,000 or 300,000 this year. Is that because we actually we'll spend 1.6 million in 2013, but we'll bring in 1.9, or we're bringing in 1.6, but we're only spending 1.3, like we're underspending the budget? That was kind of my question.
Are you looking at the summary page, or do you have something else that I
I
don't?
was looking at your summary page. So you have an expense budget of 1.6 million for 2013, including the debt service. Sorry, all cash.
All right, I see 1.5, but I guess is, I don't know what you're looking at.
1593 for 2013.
that was,
1593 is 213, 214 proposed budget is
Yeah,
1543.
yeah. So-
Okay, well, close enough to 16, I guess. I'd like
Right.
to have the difference myself, but
Right. So, no, I was just saying, you mentioned that you think the retained earnings will go from around 400 to 600 or 700 by the end of the year. So it's only going up because revenue's a lot more than the 1593, or we're spending a lot less than the 1593.
right.
That
and
was
that's-
what my question
And that's
was.
when you do your cost of service, and that
Yeah.
should reflect your rates.
Now, I was curious, which one is it? We actually bring in more revenue than the 1593?
It's a balance of both. So we have a
Okay.
revenue coming in through the rates, and we have a management of, we're lowering our expenses by
Right.
not paying $190 an hour for consultants and bringing in our own people. But we are also, just so you know, by design, we're increasing retained earnings. I've made known to the selectmen in my department and so forth that we haven't done any additional work. Water, you need to improve all the time. You need to do it. We purposely haven't done it, and since in the last 3 years, we haven't spent any money on new improvements. Once we do, these numbers are going to look a little bit more sensible. I'm trying to build a retained earning because
To
we
fund
have
the
all sorts of,
project, yeah,
we have a
yeah.
master plan, and it identifies some of the things that we
Yeah.
need to do. Just that $1.2 million that we need for new source development, the more money that we can put away,
Right, you're trying to do it through a retained earnings buildup as
So it'll
opposed
all
to
be
needing
through
to do a debt service. Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, okay,
Smaller debt.
just trying to manage this,
Yep, yep, no.
and keep the rates where they are, and
right.
there's all sorts of things. There's looping that needs to be done. Like right now, we're out flushing, and water can get stuck in corners of our system if it goes to a dead end and it doesn't have a continuation where it can continue to circulate and so forth. So looping is one of the demands that we have in our master plan to get done, and there's probably $3 million worth of loops that we could do in the next 2 years. We won't do it. We don't need to do it that fast, but eventually we need to do that. We need to replace all the AC pipe to Dr. Lyon. AC is airborne. It's it's a hazardous waste. But so that's really what's
Okay.
going on.
All
We're
right.
just managing it to
Yep.
this point.
Other questions?
Yeah, on we're talking about Article 6, right?
Yes.
Article 6 is an operating budget. Haven't we in the past itemized the capital-like items in this? Or is that, am I just misremembering?
I haven't even seen that, to tell you the truth. Never once. I haven't seen the warrant at all, but,
Oh,
It's
just a
boilerplate.
generic, it's a
Yeah.
generic, no numbers or anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
It says,
I don't think so. I don't
Yeah,
think
I don't
we've done,
recall it either. Not last
unless
year.
they were unique articles. There's been unique articles of capital projects for water.
for capital projects that
Yeah.
are funded out of the capital.
No, funded out of the retained earnings.
Right.
Yeah.
So, for example, things like cleaning the well, that wasn't a separate line item in...
that wasn't a warrant article. It was within the budget, so
Within
the
the
budget got
operating
approved, that got
expense.
approved.
I wonder if, are you planning to do a presentation of this at the town meeting?
No.
I wonder if it might be worth that. Water budgets are kind of mind-numbing, but we are talking about $750,000 worth of expenses and an additional headcount, and the imminent requirement for what sounds like, you just described at least $4 million worth of spending that we should at least have in our minds as part of this program. And I presume some of that is in the $750,000 worth of expenses. You're doing some things that would sound like capital, even if they're not broken out.
Right,
They have a long life.
right. We've maintained a discipline to, include special projects.
It's just one of these things that catches my eye in a budget. We wind up spending a fair amount of time on relatively small numbers sometimes, but what amounts to a relatively large number gets a fairly, and you've done a good job at summarizing all the, relative to all the detail we used to see, but, there's a fair amount of money that is being spent and more that is being contemplated of spending, and it would be an idea, I think, to inform the town of the current status and plans in that regard. At least that's my opinion. I don't know.
It sounds good to me. I wouldn't mind consulting with,
Yeah, it's a selectman.
with the
It's called-
Jack and the selectmen.
Oh, sure, yeah.
But now you could teach me something here, because when it comes to town government, I'm on the learning curve for sure. To go up in front of the people, I guess to get this approved, you would do it at that point, to have a budget approved. But it's more just an informative thing. It's just for your information, here's what's going on the water.
Prior to
So it's-
Article 6, you could do a 5-minute presentation, not on the detail of the budget, but on what the water system is currently doing, what its plans are, the possibility of a new well field coming online. You can use that if the selectmen want. Use, particularly where you have a separate budget, it's a great opportunity to get up and, and sort of describe your good news, because it sounds like there is a lot of good news, and there wasn't for a lot of years. So, in terms of that, see if the selectmen are interested in having a water
do.
presentation.
I'll definitely run that by him.
I mean, certainly information like we've reduced lost water by
Yeah.
80%, that's a significant bit of news right there. And,
Yeah, it's a great
and,
accomplishment.
even though we fought hard to avoid having to spend money on it and all that you're doing elsewhere. But I just think it's a large number, and just because it's approved in kind of a lump sum basis in Article 6, I think it has, I would encourage you to take the
Sure.
time to take 5 minutes to describe the capital-like plans around the program. There's a
Great
lot of
advice.
moving parts that everyone should be aware of, particularly as if you think there's $1 million worth of new well that's coming down the road, it might be a good idea to prepare people for it.
Good idea.
Okay. Everybody else set? I think you can go home.
Time.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks,
See you later.
Really appreciate your staying this late. That's it's going above and beyond, definitely.
Thank you.
So thank you. All righty. If you guys are willing to tough it out a little bit, I think we can avoid a meeting next week, because what we have left, aside from a few stray articles that I think we can talk about tonight, is the budget, and we have KP. And I think we can kill both of those 2 weeks from now.
School vacation week?
Is it 2 weeks from now?
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to be here.
Yeah, there's a chance I'm on the road again, and
Or-
in light of my stellar attendance record, I'd like to be able to come to at least one more meeting.
17th. 17th is the last chance we have before we have to go to print.
I'm just saying, I'm here next week,
Yeah.
I'm probably not here the following week.
I'm definitely not here the 17th. You're not here the 17th.
Well, that means next week, potentially, could be it. I don't know who's
I
going to
thought
be
next
ready
week,
for what
Pat,
at
weren't we
that
going
point.
to, I thought the selectmen were coming back in with, I would have
No,
assumed
I-
a balanced budget.
The budget was going to be the last, what I thought was going to be our
Right.
last meeting, which was
Right.
the 17th. but-
Okay.
Because the 17th is our cutoff. That's, by the 24th, we have to be to press.
Right.
So we can meet again after the 17th, but anything that we're going to communicate to the public has got to be done by the 17th. So you're not around the 17th? I mean, yeah, you won't be around the 17th. So we're down to 6 guaranteed, and we don't even know about Rick, Angela, shoot. All right, well then, what I was planning for the 17th, we'll plan for next week, if we can make it happen. I don't know where the selectmen will be on the budget. I mean, the idea
That
was
might
to
be
give
the-
them as much time as
Right.
possible
Yeah.
to have a solid budget nailed down, so this will take a week away from them.
They're having a lengthy discussion Tuesday night on the budget.
Well, in any event, let's schedule next week.
Okay, I will not be here next week, so.
But if we're gonna do those two things next week, we still need to get done tonight, what we need to get
Yeah,
done
we can
tonight,
get through the
so.
articles tonight.
Pardon me?
Whatever articles we have left, if we can do those tonight. The budget's the budget. I mean, we're not gonna, it's not like we're gonna override a balanced budget, so.
Right, I mean, what we have left for articles isn't all that much. We have,
No, it's not.
I move we indefinitely postpone Article 7.
Which
Flag
one's
in the
that?
ground.
Second.
Two times,
Say, yeah.
changing two
Second.
times at the microphone.
Right.
it's been moved and seconded that we IP Article 7.
I know,
So we have-
I hate to do this
do we have
with
any
so few
discussion on
people
that?
here. I just, I agree with Cece that I just get this sense that people who need to speak more than 8 minutes, their goal is, I want to be the last voice heard because that'll carry the vote. And I hate that with a passion. If you can't get it said in 8 minutes, she has the absolute right, first of all, if somebody poses a question, she could certainly go back to somebody who's already spoke twice and ask them to answer a factual question. That I don't think, and, I think, I don't, I know he said somebody stated something incorrectly, but as Dave said, there's the point of order, and if you think somebody has absolutely said a flat-out lie, and just raise a point of order, get her to recognize the point of order and have that lie flushed out. I don't think that counts in the 2 times.
It doesn't, I didn't necessarily agree that it was likely for more people to attend the organizational meeting to somehow get the rules set in advance, but I think if we could educate people to appeal to the judgment of the moderator during, to bring a point of order about factual matters or to ask that more time be given, I mean, I just think if we can educate people that we should use the moderator's discretion. That's what she's there for in part.
I would tend to agree. My concern is that these have been taken as rigid rules and have been, I think, pretty rigidly enforced as well. So,
By the town people, the moderator, or both?
well, I think the townspeople have understood them to be rigid, and I think the moderator has enforced them. I mean, when we have the instance where a factual correction was attempted to be made at last time, and the moderator did not allow that person to speak, to
Oh,
correct.
really?
But it wasn't raised as a
It
point of
wasn't
order.
raised that, right. It was not.
If you don't want to understand the rules of the game, that's fine. I don't think we change the rules because people aren't going to take enough time to learn the rules. I don't buy
But
that.
I don't think people understood. We're talking about somebody that knows the
Oh, come on,
procedures.
it was brought up by the
And-
selectmen, and you know damn well, Rob and Jim know damn well they can raise a point of order if they think a lie has been put out. That, I don't buy that one. I don't buy that at all. They know they could raise that as a point of order.
And again, the 8 minutes is, people don't talk 8 minutes, but they do like to respond. But, I mean, given that CC has indicated that she is willing to exercise her flexibility if it seems like a legitimate and valid discussion is going on, I would be comfortable leaving it to her discretion. I do think that there have been times when conversation has been stifled that should have been allowed to continue.
Well, I'll also add, though, that, and again, this has nothing to do with Norfolk, but in the other town meetings that I've experienced, town meetings should never be allowed to degenerate to a debate between 2 parties. That is absolutely a moderator's job, is to make sure that never happens. That is not what town meeting is. It's to put your point out, it's to, let people comment on it, but it's never supposed to degenerate into a debate on the floor of town meeting between 2 parties. That's what will turn people off so fast and not come back.
Yeah, I mean, I think bottom line is the attendance is going to be what it's going to be. People don't come or stay away on the basis of
I can only speak twice.
how long they think the meetings are going to be. They do it because they either care or they don't care, and that's just the way the population is divided up. So I'm not sure that this article has any effect in that regard. I mean, I'm inclined to go along with the IP just because I think giving a chance to see how a more flexible administration or implementation of the rules and people understanding that they can raise points of order, et cetera, give that a shot. And if it really, 2 years from now, it's still the feeling, this can always be revisited again.
Can I ask a point of clarification? I guess it's been 6 months since we last met, and I guess my whole brain is wiped clean. We IP things when we believe that they aren't kind of ripe
The
for
equivalent,
consideration.
Right.
no, it's the equivalent of we're not for it.
Why don't we just move, so we don't move to reject something?
I don't know.
No,
Everything just gets
Okay.
IP.
That is,
We don't
that
like
is-
it, we
that
IP
is
it.
our rejection.
I see. I'd rather use the word rejection, because that's what I feel like in this case.
I don't know
Okay.
where that ever
We'll
came
IP
from,
it.
but it is the
Thank you.
lingo
It was
we use.
3 or 4 meetings before I first learned what IP stood for, so.
It's indefinitely postponed, right?
Yeah, indefinitely.
And indefinitely means until the next meeting,
Right.
except for a zoning article,
Which is not what I want
Yeah.
to say here. I just want this to not come back again.
until the next meeting, next town meeting.
But yeah, that's our quaint way of saying no, basically.
Okay.
All right, so, anybody else have points to raise on the motion, which has been seconded, and now, I believe, discussed? Yes? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor of IPing Article 7, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? It is a 5-0 vote.
6-0.
1, 2, 3, 6-0, yes. I thought we had quorum plus 1. Man. Okay.
Okay, can you tell us what else we have?
Let's,
Let's,
let's start at the beginning. Article 1, we have nothing. Article 2, there are none. We will wait until the night of the meeting to vote on that one, though. Transfers, we'll find about night of the meeting. The compensation schedule, 1.5%, we already approved, I believe. 5 and 6 are the budgets.
I'd move we approve Article 6 at the amount of, what was the amount? 1,543,583.
Yep.
Seconded.
Do we want to vote that before we're sure from the selectmen that this is in fact the final budget that they want?
Yeah, I don't
presented?
think there's any,
No?
it's not dependent on
We can always-
general revenue, so.
Move to reconsider later.
Yeah.
Okay, so we approve it, and if there's a change, we can reconsider it. Okay.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded that we approve the operating budget of the Water Department, Article 6. Any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous, 6-0. Article 7, we've covered.
Sorry, just an editorial on this. I think it's great that to have a more summary presentation. I don't feel like I understand $750,000 worth of spending.
I think he has I imagine he has a more detailed budget.
I'm sure he does.
Told him not to produce for us
Well, he has given us,
to pass all his line items.
from the notebook, last year
I
and the
think
year
Arlie's
before.
feeling, the
there
red
was a-
notebook was too much,
there was
but
an
2 sheets is too
Right.
little.
Yeah, there's gotta be something.
So
He
maybe
had
next
given us
year,
something.
Hi.
Baby Bear will be back with just right.
Arlie's
Yeah.
porridge is a very, very tenuous
Exactly.
dish.
It was too cold this year.
Sorry, Arlie.
Yeah.
It was too hot last year.
But you know,
He
I
has
mean,
given
with you, he's perfectly willing to share
Oh,
Yeah.
whatever he's got. I mean, I think he's clearly responded literally to what we had suggested last year.
Yeah.
Well, he,
Like I say, let's get that porridge just right.
last-
And I like
last
raisins
year-
in mine, too, so I just want to be sure that we got everything.
If you remember last year and the year before, we got a lot more detail on still only 3 or 4 pages. So he's chopped it down even more this year compared to the last 2 years, so
But
I'll.
I imagine the detail
I'll-
exists if
Yeah.
we really want to see it.
So, I mean, I think the level of detail he gave us the last couple of years, we were happier with. I agree, this was chopped a little
I think we got a book last
little
year.
more than I would like as well. So I'll
We can ask him to go back.
I'll raise it with him.
Just to the water, though, the other ones were,
Yeah.
because he's really fitting that into, the number that the selectmen say he has to fit it into.
Where are we? We've approved articles. Okay, the zoning,
Well,
Did you want to,
eight we already did, right?
8 we already
Did we
approved,
do?
yes.
We did.
Yeah. I think
you really?
we approved that at our first meeting.
yes, we did.
Wow, you guys are.
Well, there's no money in it, it's just letting them,
Just establish an account?
yeah, it's,
Okay.
they can do it if they can find the money to put it
Got
in.
all the zoning ones.
All right, and we have the zoning articles, which we have discussed, and they are now final. Marion, we know these to be final.
Yes,
Do we know that the planning board has approved them?
No,
I don't know.
no, you kidding me? That'll be the week before,
Their hearing's the 11th,
yeah, May.
Thursday.
Oh,
April. The public hearing's the 11th.
All right,
wow.
so
Well, then we
Vote on
can,
next week.
we should be able to dispose of these in
not
no
next week.
time next week, yes?
Well, no,
But
their
that's,
hearing's
they're
the
on
day
the
after.
11th. They're,
Yeah,
they're
their
the
hearing's
day
the
That's
day
the
after.
10th, 11th.
But if you're,
No,
if you're meeting on the 17th, Pat, you can do all
Oh,
the
right,
zoning
it's
ones
Thursday.
then.
Yeah. Well, no, if we meet next week,
Oh,
there
you're
won't be
trying
any
to be
point.
done.
you probably should
I
still,
don't know that we'll have any point, especially since it sounds like we might not even have a quorum on the 17th, so. I mean, maybe, it depends on how many people will be and what there is, but I don't want to leave it till then.
Right.
We got to do it either this week or next week.
well, we do generally, we vote the zoning articles before their public hearing. We always
Yeah.
have.
But we at least know that they've approved them, or intend to.
Well, again, they're not their articles.
Right.
They are required by law because they're zoning changes to opine on them, but they're not their articles. They're the zoning bylaw study
Yeah.
committee's articles. And
All right,
We
and
can-
again, I guess, we've got our meeting the night of the meeting. If we find out something disastrous has happened, we can always revisit.
First, do we remember what
Okay.
any of these were?
So,
Exactly. And look at the notes.
all right. For those who were not present for the discussion, the general intent of these zoning laws is to eliminate the frontage road requirement down in the 115, 1A intersection area, so that businesses will now be allowed to have direct access to Route 115.
Blazing highway of 115 or 1A.
Got overcrowded,
So,
heavily congested.
All right.
that's
That
that's
was-
the.
That was
this-
9 and 10?
That's 9 and
What was the
10.
intent on those?
And the other thing, one of these articles, which one of these articles is
No,
putting
10 is
the,
creating unique zones.
yeah, 10 basically is being created to allow for medical marijuana
Okay.
to
I
go
move
in
we
with the
approve
adult
Article-
entertainment.
Article 9.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, we approve Article 9.
This was to do away with the frontage road.
Do away, right.
Absolutely, that was.
Yeah. Article 9 is the deletion of whatever, but anyway, any discussion?
No, I think it's a great idea.
Hearing no discussion, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That was a ragged aye. Did we get everybody voting on that?
Aye.
Yes, okay, 6-0 it is. Okay, Article 10 is repurposing some existing stuff, specifying specific purposes for specific lots, as well as adding medical marijuana to the adult entertainment district.
It's quite a district.
Yep.
I move we approve Article 10.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we approve Article 10. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? Did we get a vote from everyone?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, Article 11. This was the article, this is the Paul Kelly lot. It is identical to the article that
Last fall.
we approved on a split vote in the fall and that the town rejected, so it is now back again. Do we need to talk about it again? Has anybody got any new information, changed opinions, whatever, since last time? No? Okay.
One thing and this is what I don't remember, I don't know, Harley or Dave, whether you guys remember, do you recall anything about when a zoning article gets turned down at a town meeting? I always thought there was something about it can't come back, but I don't remember what the criteria was.
No, I agree with you, Mark. I thought there was something like that, but I don't know. I assume who's ever proposing this.
I missed the first meeting. Why are they proposing it again?
Was there open for better luck?
That's the only reason.
But didn't he said something about, it had raised the question before of that, they turned it down, but somebody raised the question of that road coming down, what's just a paper road now, and I thought they said something about this excludes that. Am I dreaming?
There was an earlier version, yes.
Yeah.
There was an earlier version of this article that specifically said,
Will not allow access
Right.
from that paper
Right.
road to
But-
Boardman.
but then
That
the
was an
article was
earlier
changed.
version?
Yeah.
And now it's changed back, so it is now identical to the article we saw in the fall.
Oh,
And that's intentional,
it is intentional.
yes.
Intending to do what?
Intentional that it's identical, that it doesn't have that little add-on that we
Restriction.
saw earlier.
Access.
I mean, I don't remember this being very close to town meeting. I thought a lot of people just had a sense of too much expansive developmentness or something. I'm not sure why they'd expect a different result. I was for it, but
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a lot
We
of,
were all for it. Well, as a committee, I think most of
Most
us
were.
voted
There were a
yes.
couple
We
were.
recommended it.
right. But there were at least 2 no's.
yeah, I
Right.
think so.
Was there a third no?
I remember.
I
I
two.
just remember the
Yeah.
I remember two.
It was like a 5-2 vote or something.
Yeah.
I know Angela was very big on this article, and
Yes,
I'd
she
almost say, let this one go till next week in case she's going to be here. I know she was very vocal on on this
That
particular
makes sense
article.
to me. If we could
And
just
maybe
vote
get an
which-
answer about why did they take it back to exactly the way it was last year?
Um,
Do you know?
Well, basically, because Paul didn't want that restriction. At first, he agreed to the restriction, and then he decided it would adversely impact the value of his lot, so they didn't want the restriction.
Okay. I won't be here to vote.
That was the explanation we got from somebody. I forget who was here that had told us about it, the change, but. So is
I can imagine the reservations. I can't imagine, I can't recall the discussion now, but 150 cars that don't need to be moved for 9 months, and what happens if the guy goes out of business in the meantime?
What do you want?
Article.
What are you talking
Sorry.
about?
What article are you doing?
Oh,
now?
sorry, I'm staring at 7J7.
Oh, no, we're on
The ad
the little
default.
tiny Article 11.
11.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Debate.
Just, it's like 3 lines.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry, I was completely distracted by the 150 vehicles there. That's going.
As would anybody.
Wow.
All right. So the consensus that we leave Article 11 alone tonight?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's a good idea.
Article 12 also is a repeat from the fall. Although it is modified, I believe. I haven't compared it word for word, but I think that, well, I don't know. I'm not sure whether it's different now or not.
This one gave me a headache last year, and I think it's giving me a headache again this year.
Too bad there wasn't multiple.
Again, we approved it based on the planning boards and zoning board, zoning bylaw recommendation.
Do you remember the discussion?
I
at town
still
meeting
don't see
about
a
why
problem
it
with it. I
failed?
mean, if you're talking about a
Right.
bunch of condos, this kind of density
Right.
is absolutely no problem at all.
Right.
So,
Right. I don't know, to me, if we're trying to encourage, building up the foot traffic in the downtown area, or the center of town area, might be a better way of phrasing it. I don't know, it seems like we ought to approve this one.
Yeah,
I think that was our rationale last
yep,
time.
I was in favor of it then, I still am for the
Right,
same
but
reasons.
isn't it fair to say the town rejected it, and thus someone should poll the town and come up with some revision that is acceptable? I mean, are we just going to say, keep submitting it until?
Well, Charlie,
We keep hitting our head against the wall.
That's right.
Expect a different result.
And put a wastewater treatment facility in while you're at it, and
Fire
build a public safety building.
Yeah.
Keep putting it out there.
the spectacle you missed at town meeting was the lack of support expressed by the proponents of these articles. I think,
The zoning board, planning
put it
board.
mildly, these
Yeah.
articles were not explained and defended as well as they might have been. And something like this, I mean, I forget what sidetracked it. There were 8 articles that were
All
all
around this
involved
one
with the same kind
property.
of stuff, and for some reason, this one got shot at. And nobody, I think, did all that great a job of defending it, so.
Well, they made the general case about, we need to bring in business, that means we have to have increased density. They talked about the master plan, and folks just felt that what allowances have been made for development haven't been taken advantage
Right.
of. There was big concerns about what overcrowding and whatnot would mean, so why go wild when it has yet to prove to be even necessary? Again, not that I agree with that thinking, but that was the vibe
That
I
was
got.
Yep.
I don't know if that mood it's going to change, but
So,
I don't know.
all right. So do we have some disposition of this Article 12? We don't have any unrepresented contingent here, so I would just
Pretty much
assume
more or less.
dispose of it
I would move
tonight.
we approve Article 12.
seconded.
Moved and seconded that we approve Article 12. Discussion.
I'd like to see the business zones area grow, so,
We thought it was good enough last time.
Yeah.
for all the same reasons.
I haven't heard anything to change our opinion, even though I don't remember what it was. but-
Well, yeah, aside from the fact that the town appeared to disagreed with it, I mean,
Yeah, that's the only downside.
are we really proposing the same thing again,
I think so.
identically?
I think so.
I
As
mean,
far as I
doesn't
know,
that,
it's identical. If it's not, it's close enough, it's,
doesn't that seem?
Sometimes it takes 2 charges up the hill.
This time they really mean it.
We really mean it?
Yeah, this time we really mean it.
We're truly enthusiastic.
I'm sure probably by the time we took the vote on this last town meeting, it was probably, 20 to 19 or something.
Right.
Very representative of the town as a whole.
these do require 2/3.
That's true.
No. Oh, wow, really?
Yeah,
Oh, that's a steep.
that's probably where it got. You're right, probably passed with a majority, but not 2/3.
I mean, unless, it seems kind of silly to me, frankly, unless someone's going to step up and be a strong proponent of it, to simply resubmit again the second year just seems like a little bit of a waste of time.
Maybe they'll step up.
The article is on the warrant, so it will be discussed and voted on one way or the other. The question is,
The
what's
first
your
issue.
opinion of the article? And how do you want to vote tonight?
All right, we got a motion in a second.
So we have motion seconded. Further discussion? If not, all in favor of approving Article 12, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
There we go.
Renegade.
It is a 5-to-1 vote.
Go crazy here. I'm finally at a meeting. I can vote. I'm feeling liberated.
All right.
13, I'll say move we approve 13.
I don't think Article 13 is an article. I mean,
It's a moratorium.
vote to, see if you'll vote to place a moratorium on a bylaw. What bylaw?
I
Well,
think
didn't we just vote a bylaw on this?
No, we voted a zoning change. I think what I think the Attorney General ruled that towns can, under the law that passed at the ballot, were required to provide for the establishment of these things. But then I think the Attorney General ruled, as best I remember, that although we cannot flat out say no, that we can indeed put a moratorium in place for some period of time until the state gets all its regulations out or something. So I think what this is saying is we want to take the Attorney General up on their offer by, putting the moratorium on for 1 year.
But Pat's point is, there's no bylaw that it, in play.
I think we could be sued for not, the ballot says we have to allow it.
Okay.
I think we could be sued by not, not sued, but somebody could challenge a town for, going against the will of the voters who said, you have to allow me to open my, you've created a zone now where you can have it, but you can't, if you can't tell me I can't open it tomorrow or the day after the vote.
I just don't understand what I'm approving.
So this is saying we can tell you can't open it until after June of 2014.
But wouldn't the mechanism for doing that to actually have a bylaw allowing it and vote to, on our side, IP it, for example?
We can't, that's illegal.
Right.
The law says we have to allow these things. We cannot put any kind of obstacle.
And we have to do it by putting a bylaw allowing it. We have to, in other words, the law says we have to insert a bylaw into,
Well, I think the idea of a bylaw allows you to sort of shape certain aspects of it.
right.
Right now, we can't stop it. It can open tomorrow. Okay? This gives us a 1-year window to develop a bylaw that cannot go into effect until June of 2014.
Right.
So it's like, it is the law of the land now, that these are legal.
I guess, as we've taken the position in other issues, is that if we understand the intent and wordsmithing needs to be done to get this clearer, then
No, I
so
think this
be
is
it.
pretty clear. This is, it's,
Clear to you. I have a hard time understanding what these words mean, but
well, it's written this way.
I know what it's intended to do.
Well, it's written this way so that in effect you are stopping it for 1 year. But in the course of that 1 year, it's saying you have to develop the bylaw that could put restrictions on that this thing can't, has to have 49 parking spaces, or, it can only be open, 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. on Saturdays, or something like that. You have to develop that bylaw. But absent two things, absent a bylaw, there are no restrictions. Could be open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, starting the day after that zoning article passes. And, and there are no regulations coming down from the state to do anything with this either.
But we have those restrictions in Article 10.
No, that's just a zoning. That's just saying where the thing can go. Absent that, it can go anywhere.
So this
But-
same language has been used in other towns. Other people have regarded it as meaningful. Or,
That would be my guess, that somebody came up with this language as a way to put this thing on hold for a year.
I mean, Article 10 is the only restriction we're going to be able to do, like adult entertainment, right? We confine it, we quarantine it.
That's a zoning. That's just, it has, that's saying where it can go, and in where it goes, if there are rules about that area, rules that, govern that area, then, but zoning is a land use thing. It's not an operations thing. A bylaw can be an operations thing. Zoning can't say hours or,
And you're
stuff like
thinking that we, at some point, will want to develop, we won't want a 24-hour medical marijuana
I think,
thing,
Drive-through.
and that there's a by.
And I think the
that-
state-
150 parking spaces.
Depends how much tax
something
money
like
it's
that.
going to bring in.
none to us, but good for the state.
Well, I guess I'm willing to take it on faith that this has some meaning and will buy us some time. And
Yeah, I think
if
that's all it's doing.
If that's the case, then fine. And if it doesn't mean that, then,
We can reconsider.
yeah. Or if the wording changes.
Well, can we add an agenda item just to discuss maybe a clarification of this at the next meeting?
We can do it the night of town meeting.
Okay.
They're going to, selectmen will be in there talking
Only
about
so many
transfers.
tiny things we can do the night before town meeting, and having a discussion about this thing probably is not going to be one
Well, you
of them.
can't really, I mean, no matter what you want, you can't stop this. Just like we couldn't stop the adult entertainment. You just can't.
Right.
That's what people want. No, we didn't.
Zoning. Zoning alone is all
We
we did.
didn't
was
stop
adult-
it. It's
We
just,
don't have any
there's
other
no,
bylaw-
there's no economics for it.
Right.
nobody
There'll be no
wanted it- nobody-
economics for this either.
Oh, believe me, you kidding me?
In
You don't-
Norfolk,
You don't think, I
think
think
if
there's a lot more economics in this there are for adult entertainment district. You
So
know.
you'll volunteer to write the
You can't do
opinion?
this one on the web.
No, this is what you have counsel, you have counsel for this.
Got to be there. But I mean, the issue is whether, as written, this is meaningful, right? And Pat, if I understand, and frankly, to my eyes, it's not clear to me how we can put a moratorium on a bylaw that doesn't exist yet. But if in fact you can do that, then I have no objection to the intent. Can the zoning bylaw study committee just tell us where the wording came from that has been approved by
I think
someone
they
or
had a
something like
joint
that?
meeting with the medical marijuana treatment committee.
I think if the word "a" was on passing a bylaw or something like that, we'll put a moratorium on passing a bylaw, until such time or whatever. But, then maybe I would understand it better. But if that's what it is intended to do, then fine. I don't want to haggle over the words if that's really the meaning.
I think it is.
So,
We've haggled over words in the past, but that's.
yes, we have.
Okay.
Well, I suspect this whole argument's going to get rehashed at town meeting,
No, to be sure.
because there's going to be a lot of people that just flat out don't want it.
We don't understand what the intent is.
They just don't want it, and think they have the right to stop it, and are going to be sadly.
I forget where we are on this one. We don't
I made
have
a-
a motion. at
I
this
made a
point.
motion
You
to
made a
approve it.
motion and we had it seconded? Do we have a
Second.
second? Okay.
What was the motion again?
To approve it.
Approve Article 13. It's been moved and seconded that we approve Article 13. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, aye? All opposed? So a few reluctant ayes, but it is
I
unanimous.
think it wasn't, was that originally also, that paragraph was also in the zoning? It was a separate article all along, right from the get-go?
All right,
Wait a minute.
cruising.
What is committees doing at Article 14?
I don't know why they did.
Huh, all right, but anyway,
We don't want to do that.
that's not us. We don't have to worry about that one. 90 we've approved, 16 we've approved, 17, we've approved.
Yeah.
18, 19, no, 19, we now have numbers, then these are final.
Is it the 350?
It's the 350. Only they've now broken it up into where it's going to come from, 35 from open spaces and 315 from undesignated. So the 350 did turn out to be a good number. And now we have the detail, and we
Notwithstanding-
have heard from the
So
CPC.
your thing has, mine doesn't have those X's filled, those. So
So what is, yeah, what's the breakout? Sorry,
So it's
Pat.
350 and then
35
there's-
grand from open space
Okay.
reserves
And 350.
and 315 from undesignated.
All right. Yeah, no, it's just kind of funny because Ann, when she was in, said there's no contingency and there's no well irrigation funding, so.
So they
I don't know,
expected
maybe
it
they
to go
decided
up.
the bids
Right.
came, yeah.
Yep, that's right, I remember that. We thought it would be
Maybe they
more like,
talked to some people and they still think they'll
Yeah.
fit it all in notwithstanding,
And there used to be restrictions on the use of CPC money for doing things like this?
there used to be,
It has
yes.
changed,
No,
okay.
gone.
It has changed. That's why we were able to do that playground as part of the Gump's Farm thing as well.
A lot of
So this is
playgrounds
the
in
second
town.
time we've dipped into it for playground stuff.
Now that I'm moving, we're getting all these great playgrounds. Damn.
No roads, no schools,
You
but
can't-
by God,
you
do
can't
we
get
have
to them. We have the
playgrounds.
best damn playgrounds anywhere. You have to have a tank to get to it.
All right.
I move we approve Article 19.
Second.
Moved and seconded that we approve Article 19. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, aye? Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, I believe. Article 20, the Old Town Hall article. Did
We did
we,
that one.
we did
We
not
did that.
approve that
No,
because
we
the
did.
wording?
We did.
Oh, we did approve it?
Yep.
Okay. I thought that we were waiting for possibly different wording, but okay, fine. Wonderful.
Have we done this already?
Yeah, on the 13th of March.
We get a lot
Article-
done when you're not here, Arlie.
Yeah.
We fly.
Yeah.
No, no, in some past year, haven't we done this?
Oh.
Yeah, but we never.
No, a year
Down
ago,
to your point,
we
it's in
attempted to.
the, it's in the, we should have a whole subsection, the article of the land of misfit articles.
Uh-huh.
So,
Onward and upward. 35, 21 we voted, 22 we voted.
yep.
23 is standby, standard stuff. 24 we voted.
Yep.
25. And 26 we IP'd.
Yep.
So we are through the articles.
We just got the budget in the one, Article 12.
Article
Sorry, not
Whoa.
12, not 12, 11.
11. Article 11 we still have open.
Yep.
Budget we still have open. I thought there was one other somewhere. Maybe not.
Well, the unpaid bill and the transfers.
Okay, we have, we don't have any minutes to approve. I have two other quick things. One is, Arlie, Dave is resigning from the Capital Outlay Committee. You had interest in it last time. Anyone else who has interest in the Capital Committee? They're doing nothing at the moment, so I don't think this is particularly urgent, but we do need to appoint another member.
Oh, I'll do it again.
Well, you're on it, right?
Oh, okay. I'm not enough.
Good though, good
If you
good
can-
attitude there.
If you can,
Cover two slots.
if you can do the old doppelganger
I have two
routine.
arms. So I'll work.
So Arlie, you were interested last time. Are you still?
Yeah, I'm generally interested in the topic. I'm also spending a bit more time on the road, as you probably noticed. So as long as there's someone who has both interest and availability, that is the key, I think.
Well, that should
Then,
coincide well with an utter lack of any capital funds.
Let's see.
Yes,
we have-
it's true. Given the absence of funding,
It's like,
Yeah.
that, of course, was one of my great accomplishments as chairman of the capital committee, with it, the complete elimination of the capital funding.
All right, so we'll just leave it as, let's,
Sure, yeah, if I'd be pleased to pair up, and we'll see what we can do.
Excellent.
I believe, I don't know, yeah, I guess we do have to vote that, yes? So, just to be on the safe side, let's vote
I
it.
move that Arlie is nominated as the second representative from our committee to the capital committee.
So this is going to be in writing somewhere now, huh? Did they vote for you?
In the minutes. It'll be in the minutes.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that Arlie be our second representative to the Capital Committee. Discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? Arlie, you're it. And lastly, I would like to assign these articles. So let's zip through them quickly and peel them off, and what do we got? We got,
No.
I think the general guideline should be,
26.
the only people who can do the articles are the ones who have been here for the,
Sorry.
oh, wait a second.
all right, we absolutely positively have to have Mark do the transfers one
So
last
I'll
time.
take
I
two,
mean, that is a
One last
tradition.
time.
2, 3,
Right,
and
so
4,
why
I will
don't you
gladly take.
One last time? What is there some?
Why don't you take the first
I
four?
heard the,
To South Boston.
And since it's a tradition that the chairman takes budget, I'll take
You get 5, yeah.
5 and 6,
that if you sold the house?
and that leaves
Easy risk.
19 articles to be divided among 7 people.
Really, it depends on the closing it.
All right, 7, 8.
Is to display the depths of my ignorance. When is the town meeting again?
27th.
Right on page 1.
Ah, that's a good idea.
I'll, 7 is the, I closed my computer, 7 is the,
The town meeting
yeah.
2
I'm-
times.
I'm happy to take that.
Let's take 7, 8, 9, and 10 as a block.
Okay, I'll walk it through. Unless somebody else.
No?
Let's see, so I got 1 through 5, 1 through 4, Mark. 6 and 7, me.
5 and 6.
You're going to run out.
Yeah, 5 and 6, those. Damn. I think I was a math major too, huh? Okay, so we're up now to, 7 through 10 is art, we're up now to 11 and 12, which are the repeaters. 13, marijuana. Somebody take those 3. Who hasn't taken article? Arlie, you gonna be here for town meeting?
Yeah, that's, I think
Let's
so.
see. You oppose the repeaters, so we probably shouldn't put you on the zoning articles.
I'm prepared to do, I can fairly represent the opinion of the
All right,
committee.
you want 11, 12, and 13 then?
Sure.
Okay, now we're getting into, let's see, 14.
So that means I'm not doing the 150 cars, right?
15,
14 is nothing, so
17,
15, 16.
18. How about Articles 14 through
15.
18 as a block?
15, not 14. 14 doesn't do anything for us. We don't do anything.
14, 15, 16, 17,
No, we
18
don't-
are
we
all
don't-
nothing
I
articles.
know, but we don't do 14.
Oh, we don't, okay, right, I'm sorry, that's what you're saying, 15, I get it.
I'll do nothing.
15 through 18 is
Dave?
Dave? Okay, and now we have, let's see, Lisa, you want to take, let's see, there's 8 left, we'll divide them up 4 and 4,
Okay.
Are you
You
letting
take 19 through
you letting
22?
some people off the hook?
unless you'd rather have the last 4.
What about
First half.
Angela and Al? You got more bodies.
And Rick.
Rick?
And Rick
We got Rick and Angela
and Al.
and
Yeah, a lot of people.
4.
and 4 whole articles to divide up. So who would he get? Rick's attendance is more unpredictable than most people's.
But
So-
Rick's a good one on the marijuana,
Oh, yeah, you should have to
That's
get him on
his-
that, yeah.
his baby.
That is true. Put him on that one, and then if,
I can back him up if it's not.
Yeah.
Where's marijuana? Marijuana's back a ways.
13.
Oh, did we already do that?
So Arlie could do 11 and 12, and Rick could do 13. Mark will back him up.
So Al and.
All right, wait a minute. So what was that you just said?
So
Rick
we just- we
Rick
put
gets
Rick-
13.
Rick is gonna do 13.
Rick is going to do 13, fine. And Arlie will,
Do
It's
11 and 12.
12.
Arlie, but you'll be prepared on 13 too.
I will.
No, Mark will.
I'm back.
All right. Okay, so now what do we still have, we
23.
gave Rick his token one article.
Yes.
And now we've got Al and
Angela.
Angela.
23.
Lisa,
Angela.
Al, and Lee.
Well, I was going to
No,
do
Lisa just took
Lisa
4.
took 19 to
19 through
22.
22. They sort
Okay.
of go together.
Excellent, yep. I just split them up 2 and 2.
They're not even, you know, we'll give it, if be either Angela or Al.
Give Angela the first 2 and Al the last 2. And then if they don't show up, you know, if they're not able to make it that night.
Yeah,
Yeah.
When do you want these by?
because those are all. Well, let's say by, let's see, the 17th is the, when I thought our last meeting would have been, and so if you could get them to me by that following Monday,
The 22nd is the
all right,
Monday?
will that still give us time to meet our,
I
What's that?
think so.
22nd?
do you know what our mailing date is?
I don't, we haven't gotten that far yet.
But I think that's plenty of time.
I can sit down with Sue in the morning.
The
We
meeting,
have to mail it 7 days before the 7th.
Okay, so by.
so that's
Tuesday, the 30th.
April 30th, so that date that I'm proposing would be the 22nd, yeah.
Should work.
Plenty of
That
time.
should easily
Plenty of
work.
time.
Yeah, that should work.
So, yeah,
Get 'em printed?
get me stuff
Yeah.
by the 22nd.
Because we give him just a type thing and he just prints it.
Yeah,
When is town meeting again?
May 7th.
7th.
Hopefully-
Actually, let's set it, give me that weekend to work it, so that way I'll have it ready by the 22nd. So let's say the 19th.
All right.
Yeah.
Get your explanations in by the 19th. And I think that's it. Do we have any,
That is it.
nothing else, right? We're covered? Okay, so we will meet next
So
week.
meeting minutes.
I suppose you could do it.
KP, if I can get them in the
Yeah,
budget.
Yeah.
And that's our last gasp before mailing, because, I mean, unless, I'll see how it goes next week. Maybe we'll have a meeting on the 17th if we have business and if we have enough people, but the hope is that we can wrap everything up next week.
If you do need it, I'm not here next week, but I will be, I could be here the 17th. so
Okay. I could be here the 17th.
You need those 3 other bodies.
We're all-
You're
the
not.
3 of us are out.
3 of you are out, so we got,
So you
Arthur,
need
not sure.
between,
I'll be here.
so
we got
between the other 3
you
that
need
aren't
2
here,
of
you
them.
need 2 of them.
to get a quorum.
Angela, Rick,
Okay.
or Al.
And hopefully we don't need them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Move to adjourn?
Seconded.
That was quick.
He's
been moved and
adapting to city
moved
life,
and
you can tell.
seconded that we adjourn.
Let's go move it, people. Come on.
Any, is there any
Go hit the
discussion?
bars.
Ready for the
Does
Boston
anyone
City
want to
Council
discuss
meetings?
the motion to adjourn?
I'm good.
No, nobody? Hearing none? All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? It is unanimous. We are adjourned.